Well, hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. We are back to our usual later in the evening time, but it's the new year. Welcome to 2025. Happy New Year, everybody. And if you have had a good New Year's Day, I'm sure you enjoyed your New Year's Eve, and hopefully you've recovered from the night's festivities. And now you're ready to talk some DC news because we are, and we had to talk about so many different things. We had to talk about like Joe Manganiello and that Bane and Deathstroke movie. We have to get into everything that's going on or not going on in the DCU slate. The upcoming timeline, whether it's the TV shows or the movies. We also have to talk about more Superman-related news because, of course, it is 2025, so it is the year of Superman. Or will it be? You'll have to see. So far, they're off to a good start. We have to look ahead to Creature Commandos episode 6. Of course, the penultimate episode of the series. James Gunn has been talking about it, and we're going to look ahead to it. It's coming out in a matter of hours, literally hours from now. So, we'll get into that. I was meant to be looking at my non-existent watch, but anyway. And I'm sure we'll get into other, topics well beyond that. I have a bit more ranting about Justice for Batman, both in the DCU and in the Elseworlds. So let's do that and so much more today. I've got not just John with me, but Liz. Liz, how are you doing today? How was your New Year's?
I'm doing well. Happy New Year, everybody. My New Year's was great. And I'm looking forward to what 2025 has in store, at least entertainment-wise. Everything else may not be so great, but we'll see what happens.
I'm glad that you had a good New Year's Eve, and I'm sure it's going to be a big year for the movies, and especially comic book movies. We're going to get into Marvel stuff later in the week, but today, it's a day full of DC stuff. There's a little bit of a hint of Marvel in there somewhere, I'm sure. I'm sure we'll get into comparisons. But speaking of comparisons, John, how are you doing today?
This podcast is brought to you by The Evil Dead. Anyway, but New Year's was fine. I don't like New Year's. It's just like I'm just at home with my parents, and I didn't even have any sparkling cider to celebrate with. Just had to settle for sparkling water like a peasant. The worst. No, I'm just kidding. But it was fine.
Peasants don't drink sparkling water. That's for sure. They can't afford it. Straight tap.
But yeah, I think we should just already.
Sorry. I jumped the gun.
I was in the middle of my song.
I jumped the gun a little bit. I'm sorry.
Okay. But yeah, New Year's was fine. I'm just glad to be done with 2024. Now we're on even 2025. I love years that end in a 5 or a 0. Well,
I was born in the year
except for the last one that ended in a 0. Let's not talk about that. But I just that's like my perfectionist brain talking. But yeah. But let's jump into it before I talk too long because people hate it when I talk too long.
Sorry,
but they're loving the glasses, John. They're loving the glasses.
Yeah.
They are? Oh, hello to everybody in the chat. I forgot to say hello. Who is in the chat right now? We've got Antonio, Manolo, Caleb.
Like a sexy lumberjack librarian.
Wait, somebody said that? No, nobody said
No,
that.
I'm saying
you're just self-proclaimed.
That's right, John. Hype yourself up.
Caleb, where did John go? Who's this guy with the glasses? Yeah, I'm not that guy with the glasses. That's Doug Walker, but I'm a different guy with the glasses. I'm Joe. No, I'm just kidding.
Moving on.
Here I am. But yeah, my new chair that I have, due to the fact it has armrests, I can't tuck in as good as my other chair, so I'm farther away, so I have to wear my glasses because my eyesight's getting worse. I need to go see the doctor soon, the eye doctor soon, because my eyesight is for shit. It's staring at screens for so long.
We'll get there, man. It's time. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat here.
Jason Momoa. Oh no, we'll get into that absolutely. And everybody,
we'll get into it.
Yeah, we're really gonna get into it. Speaking of getting into it, let's get into some news that maybe Liz wasn't the biggest fan of. Now, of course, grain of salt, because My Time to Shine, hello, doesn't always get things right. But
no, they don't. That's
this
fair.
Particular scooper did put it out there that Joe Manganiello. Let me say
Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello isn't coming back as Deathstroke for the Bane Deathstroke movie in the DCU.
Not cool.
As of right now, we don't even know if this movie is actually a real thing. We heard about it from one of the bigger trade outlets.
From a guy. So
but I'm just it wasn't this was it? No. This was reported in Deadline and stuff that the movie is in the works. So I'm sure they didn't get that wrong, but they didn't say anything about, oh, it's greenlit, and James Gunn has never addressed it. So we don't even know if this movie is actually going to happen. But you know, the little cameo that he made at the end of what was it? BVS? Was it BVS or was it Justice League, right? It was I forget which movie this particular scene is from.
It was Justice League.
Yeah, it was Justice League.
Justice League, yeah. Well,
the Justice League was like setting up the Injustice League, but then for the Snyder Cut, it was setting up the Batman, both of which never happened. So,
Yeah. I'm surprised they were able to like repurpose it, because I remember they went back and shot that scene with Jesse Eisenberg's lines, right? So Lex Luthor said something slightly different, so that they reshot that sequence in the reshoots, the infamous reshoots that Joss made.
Yeah, almost as bad as the reshoots for Captain America 4. God damn.
Damn. Yeah. You know what? I can't wait for GTA 6 either, Caleb. But we'll see. We'll probably get a bunch more before GTA 6 comes out. In fact, a lot of the last.
We're getting GTA 6 before the Batman Part 2. That's the new meme. Now,
oh my god!
Where it's like we're getting everything else before Batman. We're getting Lobo before Batman Part 2. That's the new GTA 6.
What I will say though, I was reading about this the other day. GTA 6 is going to be such a big launch. Or at least it's going to be a big launch. It's going to be the biggest game of the year, if it comes out this year.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That other game studios are actually like sitting out so far and then haven't announced release dates for their games because they don't want to accidentally run into the same release date as GTA 6. It's ridiculous.
Honestly, is much better because it's like, don't announce your game like if it's like gonna take more than like 2 or 3 years, don't announce it soon because then people will be sitting on it. And then once it's like, oh, the release date's coming and they have to delay it, then Cyberpunk 2077 it'll be like that where they're like, okay, fine, we'll release it. And then it was a half buggy mess. And then they're like, this is a half buggy mess. It's like, yeah, because you fuckers wouldn't leave us the fuck alone and we had to release the damn thing. So you know what? It's
I was just gonna say Caleb says we're gonna get GTA 7 before Batman Part 3. So
we're gonna get Sims, we're gonna get GTA 6, 7, and 8, and Sims 5 and 6 before Batman Part 3.
We're gonna have 2 Bane Deathstroke movies before Batman Part 3, that's for sure. Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, Joe Manganiello. I'm never gonna get his name right.
Manganiello.
I will say it 10
times. Like it is.
Okay. Well, Joe Manganiello is busy handing out briefcases on Deal or No Deal Love Island. Is that what it's called?
Devastated.
Or is Deal or No Deal Island?
But it's basically No Deal Island. Yeah. When I saw the promo, I was so devastated.
Did you say Deal or No Deal Love Island?
It's practically what it is.
The island. Yeah.
But no, I'm okay. I was making fun of it, but it feels like that's how they pitched it. They were like, now just imagine Deal or No Deal, but without Howie Mandel, moving Joe Manganiello.
He would never be caught dead on an island.
And then Love Island, and they make a baby Deal or No Deal Island. That's how they pitched it. That was the elevator pitch, and
well, you guys know I sent you the trailer, and I was like, no, that means he's not coming back. I'm devastated. I'm so bummed out.
Well, we're devastated too, but we gotta move on. So talking about sorry, Liz.
Yeah, so devastated. Let's move the fuck on already.
Speaking of being devastated, the DC brand has been devastated over the last 10 odd years.
Oh no, I just got over being devastated and now I'm devastated again.
So I was just gonna point out this one thing I noticed because it is New Year's Day. So Warner Brothers Discovery put out like their New Year's post, like Happy New Year, blah blah blah, and of course they had all the logos of all the different brands that they have, including you can see in the bottom there CNN. You've got the Warner Brothers, water tower. You've got the Bleacher Report logo in yellow, the Food Network in that green teal color, and then you've got the DC logo. It's prominently featured. Of course, we now know. I mean, this isn't new as of today, but obviously DC Studios exists, which wasn't a thing until like a year ago. So. Looking at that, I just wanted to kind of just point out the fact that this goes to show you that the new regime at Warner Brothers, unlike the ones before Discovery took over, they prioritize DC in a way that hasn't been done before. They're doing what Marvel, the treatment that Marvel got from Disney when Disney bought Marvel and said, okay, we're going to establish Marvel Studios. I mean, Marvel Studios was it was an entity before Disney bought them, but Disney didn't, bury them under the Walt Disney Motion Picture Studios. They said, no, you're going to be your own thing, and we're going to support what you're doing because by the time Disney bought Marvel, they had already been working their way up to the Avengers. So it wasn't like, they had a few hits under their belt with Iron Man, the first Captain America, Thor, which they weren't like runaway hits until like Iron Man 2, I believe, was the first really big one. But, and the Incredible Hulk, which was co-produced by Marvel and released by Universal. So I think now seeing that treatment for DC is proper because, hey, if they go down the same path, or they can even replicate half the success of Marvel, I just saw this, and we might talk about this tomorrow when we do MCU Weekly. Marvel was bought by Disney for $4 billion. It has been I think it was 14 years ago, almost to the day, that they closed the deal.
They got it 15, right before Avengers came out, that was 2013, 2011, or 2012, 2013.
But the deal closed I think on January 1st, 2014. So officially, it was made official literally on New Year's Day 2014. And so pretty much to the day 14 years ago, Disney bought Marvel. And the reason I bring this up is because they bought Marvel for $4 billion. Today, Marvel Studios and Marvel as a brand in general is worth $40 billion. So they have multiplied that value of the brand tenfold. And it's made as much money at the box office, by the way, that alone probably adds up to the same number. So it's just, to me, I'm thinking, okay, when they say that they want to try to give DC that its own footing and give it the kind of treatment that Marvel got at Disney, I'm not necessarily thinking, we're gonna get Marvel movies except from DC. They have different properties, the characters are different, the worlds are different. Clearly, the Superman trailer goes to show you the types of stories they're gonna tell are gonna be different. But at the same time, what's good is that the behind the scenes business decision making, up from the higher ups, really I think is setting them up for success in a way that was never true in the past. So it's something that I do appreciate. I mean, regardless of how much you may like or hate David Zaslav, I think this is one of those decisions where putting James Gunn in charge, giving them their own studio so they're not working under Pam Abdi, Michael DeLuca at Warner Brothers Pictures is a good thing. I think that's working in their favor, and that's hopefully going to give them the freedom that they need to build on top of already what we have seen so far is fantastic. Speaking of which, quickly wanted to run this by you, Liz. We talked about this on the show yesterday. Aaron Pierre, of course, is going to be our John Stewart in the new Lantern series, and he recently talked about how he sees the character, and his quote is right there, so I'll read it. It says, "For me, this character has always, radiated class," Aaron Pierre said. "He's always radiated charisma, strength, identity, so I'm very happy to be bringing him to life in live action." Just wanted to get your opinion on this. John and I kind of talked about it yesterday, but what are your thoughts on just the way he talks about the character with a bit of sense of reverence and respect? Yeah. Which, you don't always see that from actors. Sometimes they're like, I'm playing it because, my Anthony Hopkins' birthday yesterday, right? He was honest. He's like, my grandkids think I'm a cool grandpa because I'm in the Marvel movies. And that's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, right. Aaron Pierre looks at this as, from a different perspective. Obviously, he's a lot younger. He doesn't have grandkids. But I'm just saying, what do you think about his take on the role?
No, I think it's really sweet, and it just goes to show you how much he cares and how important this is to him. So I'm hoping for good things. Again, I mean, I'm always kind of cynical about that, especially when it comes to something that could be considered a passion project, because I always feel like there are going to be people not letting you do what you want to do. So in that regard, I'm hoping that he's getting what he wants out of the role, and I'm looking forward to it, certainly. I mean, I love seeing what people have been, they grew up with these characters, they love these characters. I love seeing them actually be able to then end up in these dream roles that they never would have expected before. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it's just fantastic again to see this, because you always love it when an actor doesn't talk about it from a place of, it's small potatoes. And I don't care if you think about it as small potatoes or not. When you have a franchise on your hands, I don't care if it's superheroes, if it's Harry Potter, if it's Star Wars, whatever. Nobody wants you to put down something that you're a part of, a universe you're a part of, because there's a fan base there who clearly reveres the material, and that reverence is what has gotten you the job. Like the whole DC universe wouldn't exist if the popularity of the characters wasn't there. So I think that we have seen so many instances of actors and directors kind of talk down about the comic book movie genre over the years. Of course, there's a famous cinema comment from Martin Scorsese, but it just, I think it's a little tone deaf sometimes. The whole, because it's the genre that powers the theaters these days. It's like at a time when movie theaters, quite frankly, have more competition than ever before with video games like GTA 6 and such, with other means, like you can watch a movie on Netflix. Like Netflix has got the same kind of movies you can watch in movie theaters, TV shows. You've got like a million other streaming services. You can do so much else with your time that the movie theater, like it's not the same. It's not the attraction that it used to be. So
unfortunately,
so a brand like, or the genre like the comic book movie genre, it powers that, it's basically part of the engine that drives the movie theaters. Because, for example, you could go, like, I remember when Oppenheimer Barbie came out, right? There's the knock-on effect of, oh, all the Barbie showings are sold out, or no, all the Oppenheimer showings are sold out. Maybe, like, I'm gonna go see Barbie, or maybe I'm gonna go see like the third movie on the marquee, because people walk into a theater wanting to see movies. A lot of us, super fans will book our tickets in advance. But some people, a lot of people, in fact, will go into the theater. Let's see what's playing. Let's see the times. And if the first 2 or 3 choices they had are not there, they're like, I still want to see a movie, and then they'll go see the other one. But what brought them in the door is like probably a comic book movie. So I think that's something that people often underlook. And that's the kind of thing where I'm like, Martin Scorsese, you're the kind of person, and whose movies do benefit from being that third or fourth movie down the list sometimes, when people can't see the one that they're wanting to go to see necessarily, because it's just clearly like Killers of the Flower Moon completely flopped, but the money
Which
that
is a
it
shame,
made,
because that was a damn good film.
it's a good film, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, from the perspective of, like, what brings people to the movie theaters, like, the comic book genre deserves the respect. So, and I'm really glad that Aaron Pierre is one of those people who's not talking down, but rather talking up the character that he's going to be playing. Now, speaking of talking up the characters, the other day there was the big Lobo news. I want to see if I can pull this up a little bit, because John and I discussed it at length. But while I do that, Liz, I wanted to get your opinion on this. So we know now officially that Jason Momoa is going to be playing Lobo in the DCU. James Gunn said it himself. He confirmed it. We know it to be true. What are your thoughts on this? Are you excited about it? Do you think it's a perfect fit? Of course, this is something that Jason Momoa sort of hinted at even a couple of years ago. We were never quite sure. No official announcement would happen. But then he kind of reverted back to, like, the quote that he had at the time of, like, if they ever call me, I'll pick up the phone. And then he simply said, they called. And then James Gunn is like, welcome home, or welcome back, or something, and then with a goat emoji or in the comment. So clearly, like, there was a social media exchange. It wasn't like a big press conference thing, but we got our Lobo. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I mean, I have heard of the character, didn't really know much about the character growing up, but when I did a little Googling to get a little background, finding out that he's one of, like, the fan favorites of all of the other, aside from Superman or Batman, of all the other characters, I think that's going to be really cool. It's really exciting. Jason Momoa continues to play himself in all of these roles. So in that regard, it'll be interesting to see what he does with the character. But him being gung-ho for a project is always a good sign. And I don't know, I'm starting to view him as kind of like DC's RDJ, where it's like he's just, anytime they call, he's happy to be a part of it. So in that regard, that's cool. And, John and I were talking earlier, and he said, had this been like 10, 20 years ago, like, maybe it would have been Danny Trejo playing this character.
More than 10. It had to be like 20, 30. Danny Trejo has looked like a
he's a
wrinkled
grandpa
toe
now.
for the past like 40 years. So it's like, I don't know if he would have made that work.
Well, but again,
he would have been great. Like,
right. Well, so again, I'm also kind of torn on it in that regard too, because I don't know a whole lot about this character, and I'd really like to see a film that accurately portrays the character, and again, not just Jason Momoa playing himself in a different setting. So we'll see what happens, but it's always good when the actor is pumped about the role that they're in. So as long as they don't,
like Channing Tatum is Gambit, your favorite.
Oh, stop. As long as they don't write it like they did with Aquaman, then I'm sure it'll be a good film.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yep. By the way, if you guys haven't already hit the like button like Antonio is telling you to, and thank you, Antonio, for the reminder. Be kind and hit the like button. But Retro has a good. By the way,
That's a
Happy New
very
Year to
good point.
Retro Edit Gyms. How is that gonna work, right? Because I mean, John, you kind of mentioned it a little bit the other day, like the whole. Because does Lobo in the comics break the fourth wall, or is that something you think they might?
No,
adapt?
that's purely Deadpool. Like it's a way to describe Lobo for people that don't know Lobo very well is that he's essentially Deadpool but without the fourth wall breaking. Like both kind of started as like satirizations of like 80s action heroes and like and the latter of which was like 90s like grim dark extreme crap, but then kind of became that. Like, so it's like a whole thing with Lobo is definitely like a very weird and interesting character, and he's definitely he's a lot of fun, but you got to make sure you like do that. Got to make sure you do that character really right, and I do think Jason Momoa is going to do that. I think whoever they get to write and direct it, I think they will do it as well. But yeah, I think it's just like it's just like, look, the thing is, I'm a Doctor Who fan, and Doctor Who is like a fucking low budget sci-fi series that uses the same 5 extras in like everything. So it's like, bro, literally Colin Baker, who was the 6th Doctor, was previously a fucking Time Lord General during the 5th Doctor. It's like, that shit doesn't bother me. Like, okay, he looks similar. Who gives a fuck? It's like you also have an alien who shoots lasers out of his eyeballs where his identity is protected by a pair of glasses. Like, come on. It's like, is this where you really draw the line? Is like, okay, this guy looked like Aquaman, now he's Lobo. It's just like, I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of a silly thing to get hung up on when it's like that. If you're getting hung up on that, you're in the wrong franchise, my buddy. That's like,
well, yeah. At the end of the day,
I love this. Do that in Jason Momoa's like acts, like even from like the Justice League movie where he's like, "Ride's not over yet." He's like, "My man." He's like, "Ooh, we about to make a name for myself." Woo! Or like with like. Anyway, sorry.
Caleb is on one
Jason
tonight,
Momoa
dude. Caleb, keep going.
for
You're my favorite right now.
We got Hunter in the chat. Hello, Hunter, joining in. Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah, Manos. I have a strong feeling you're referencing that Nando v Movies vid that he fucking posted yesterday, and I know exactly what, because that was the thing. Because somebody mentioned Peacemaker, and Nando v Movies just posted a video yesterday about like how they can like retcon it into the DCU, because Peacemaker season 1 is essentially the same, and like he's like Nando v Movies. He's like, hey, I have a really good idea. And Manos, I know that's what you're referencing. I know you're a fan. That's way too specific of a thing. So yeah, that was definitely a fun thing. Because I have a whole bunch of theories on how they're gonna make that work, but this is not the time or the place because we're not talking Peacemaker today. But here's the thing. I think Jason Momoa was good as Aquaman, even though like he was essentially Aquaman in like nothing but name only. But I still
mean, he was a very off type version, which a lot of the Zack Snyder castings weren't like, like exactly how you would imagine them from the comic books. But
yeah,
exactly.
But even then, I still liked him. That first movie is still one of the best that the DCEU had to offer, and I think he did a good job. I thought it was overall a very good movie. Unfortunately, having Amber Turd in there, but we all make sacrifices, right? But Lobo is definitely his, this is his moment. This is like his character. He's like, I look like him. Like, this is me. Like, it reminded me.
Just based on this picture alone, he already owns the entire wardrobe and jewelry.
It reminded me of like when they were trying to get Patrick Stewart to be Professor X in X-Men.
That's all I wanted. They
literally gave him an X-Men comic book, and he stared at it, and he's like, "Why am I on the cover of a comic book?" And then there was the thing where they were like, where Sam Jackson eventually learned that in the Ultimate Universe that they like made Nick Fury to look like him. So it's like, well, now I got to play Nick Fury now. When they were casting the MCU, it's like, well, now I got to play him. So, you know, that's how it is. Like sometimes it just there. I mean, even Lobo in the comics, this has been going around like ever since Jason Momoa got cast. I forget, it was like an interaction between Lobo and his daughter Crush, where like, why does everyone keep saying I look like Aquaman? Like that, because they kind of made it so, you know, the comics, like the comic Aquaman looked like the DCU Aquaman, because that's what they do. Because like how they tried to make, you know, Tony Stark look more like RDJ after RDJ was cast, and all
Or
that.
you know, Nick Fury as Sam Jackson.
It's like it's like a whole thing. So he's like, why the fuck do people keep telling me I look like Aquaman? Like, this is crazy. So that was a cute thing. That's something they tend to do a lot. But yeah, as you know, I've been saying this for years. It's perfect casting. He looks like him. He acts like him. It's just there's a lot of fan art too out there.
Yeah, but Retro Edits has a good point too, though. He's saying, he goes, I want Lobo to be accurate. I don't want it to be someone who's cracking jokes all the time. Like,
yeah, I don't think they'll do that though.
Yeah. I mean, I hope not. I hope, like, again, I hope that it's not Jason Momoa playing Jason, you know, being Jason Momoa. I hope that they write it appropriately, that they don't write it for Jason Momoa, but that seems to kind of be how things have been going for all of his roles. So we'll see what happens with that for sure.
I feel like but I mean, Lobo is not exactly like a serious character though. So it's like if he makes jokes sometimes, it's not like, you know, the end of the world. I think I don't think that's. I mean, he was kind of jokey in Krypton, so like, just as long as they put on that accent, he calls himself the Man. He's, you know, being a badass as usual. I think they'll, you know, why? As long as he's a badass, then it should be cool. It should be fine. He should be fine in Woman of Tomorrow. He should be fine in his inevitable solo movie that he's going to get.
Yeah, we just need a whole Lobo universe. Like Lobo kills God needs to happen at some point. But I wouldn't mind. I don't know. We'll see. But hey, Lobo's
I loved it when they said it's Lobo in time.
What? Okay. Anyway, we're gonna move on to Superman because, of course, that's the first movie coming out in the world of the DCU. So, hey, it's the year of Superman. 2025 is here. Officially, it's here. We have so much to talk about today. We're gonna get into the Circe topic in a little bit. I know a lot of you guys have probably clicked onto the show today to talk about that. So we will get there. But hey, it's 2025 and crypto brought Superman along for the ride. Are you guys ready for this movie? Are you excited? It's still like a good 6 months away. But,
I know that stinks. Like I keep we talk about it so much, and then I remember when it's coming out, and I'm like, why? Like it's so far away. It's so far away.
It's only 7 months. It's only 6 months and 10 days.
Too long.
Just yesterday it was last July, so you know what? It's fine.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yep.
That's fair.
The year of Superman. I love the graphic that they put together here. Great work. Some nice rotoscoping work. Love it, love it, love it. Now, let's keep the conversation going because we have to talk about the Circe situation. So, in the trailer, and I'm gonna see if I can find the actual slide because we have the trailer images. I'm gonna go dig through that. But according to this, post, again, this is speculation, right? This is a theory. Take it with a grain of salt. This is not anybody reporting on this. It's more or less just like, somebody looked through the trailer again and said, oh, Cruiser Commandos is on. Circe does stuff with her magic with this purple color to it, pink purple color to it. Superman has that purple glowing or pink glowing ball of fire in the sky. Could it be one and the same? John, I want to get your opinion on this. Do you think that pink beam, as it says in the post, is that Circe's magic?
No. People are being fucking stupid. Oh, look, they're both pink. Okay. And?
No, but I mean, it is worth... I will say, though, like, do you think it sort of adds up? Like, do you feel like...
No.
Is there any way? Because there's also other colors in there. There's
okay,
green.
I can pull something out of my ass, too. Like, oh, it's actually Sci-Fi fighting Green Lantern. Okay. Yeah, I could fucking pull shit out of my ass, too.
Fair enough.
So salty. So salty.
Wow. Wow.
Well, so
I
what
mean,
is it then? What do we think he
that's
is?
my
We
question.
don't
I'm like,
know.
we've speculated about this.
How about we wait until the fucking movie comes out? How
You
about
mean
that?
be surprised? You mean find out in real time with everyone else in the theater? That's crazy talk, John. Crazy talk. Who does that anymore? We need spoilers. We need the movie ruined for us before we even buy our ticket.
Caleb wants a Lobo versus Morbius movie. And Caleb also saying David Zaslav is the purple beam destroying everything he sees. Oh man. That would be
Woo!
very meta.
Shots fired.
Hey, we got a super chat. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Hey, thank
Real
you
time.
to Retro Edits Gym. Nice. By the way,
Real
Retro,
time,
how
thank
was
you.
your exam? Like we heard that
He's on the way. He's on the platform. He's on the train.
Okay.
He's got another
Well,
one today. Good luck to you.
good luck to you, my friend. Go do
Gonna
really
be
really
smarter
well.
than all of us.
Go kill God. Just like Morbius in Morbius 7.
You don't want to offend people here. Come on, let's not just
You're the
project.
one that keeps making the Morbius kills God.
It's fair, but like it's maybe Morbius. I don't know. Morbius believes in a god or not. I don't know. I'm just saying. But thank you, Retro Edits. Jim. He's saying love your videos. Your consistency is on point. We do appreciate
Aw,
that. We
very
really
kind.
do. And we'll highlight your super chat here. But I do wonder, John, if this shot, because remember when James Gunn said that in the trailer, pretty much all of it is from like the first 1/3 or first half of the movie.
Mhm.
I forget the exact wording, but he basically implied that it's mostly from the first, like, opening parts of the film.
Yes.
Except for a few shots.
I think
So-
this is later on in the movie.
Like, I mean, it gives those vibes, right? But, like, I do wonder, is it really from, because I'm just trying to figure out, what if it is from an earlier part of the movie? But, like, could this just be part of one of those, like, oh, it's just another threat that Superman solves before the actual plot of the film begins?
That could definitely be it. I wouldn't mind that because, it's like, again, that's the mystery of it all. It could be a number of different things. I don't think it's Circe. Like, why the
It
fuck
looks
would
like
they
it could
bring
just
in?
be like a fireworks display, like a celebration or something. Because the two of, like, if you look at the two of them in the foreground, like, they don't look very concerned. They don't look overly, like,
I know,
they look
it's
like they're
the
having
whole
a nice
thing of,
chat. Like,
that's true. That is actually a really good point, because it's not like they're in a rush to go do whatever that needs to be done. It's
I
not
mean,
like, yeah.
it's green. It looks like Green Lantern's handling it. It's
well,
fine.
and there doesn't seem to be like any
Guys,
accompanying explosions, or there's no fireballs. Like, to me, like, this could be
That's
a
a weird
celebration
looking
of some sort.
firework, if that's a firework.
But hello, it's a comic book movie. We're in the future. What do you like? It could be anything. That's the point. Like, I don't know.
But remember, John, a long time ago we were speculating that there was maybe something from the comics. Somebody pointed out that it could be like a comic book based villain or some kind of like planetary, like not.
I remember one of the theories was that it was a Sun Eater from All Star Superman.
Right, that's what I was thinking of. Like, could it really be that, now that you've seen it in action, the way it's sort of?
I don't think so.
rotating
It
and
didn't.
stuff?
It doesn't really, unless like James Gunn really changed the look of it, then that might be the case. But I don't know. I don't think so. It just looks too. It looks like a technological thing. Like, it looks like technology. I think it's like a Lex Luthor thing. Like, I think that's just what it is.
Skrillex going crazy in the center of town. Thank you, TC24. Exactly. It's a laser light show.
Oh,
It's
That's
an
the
EDM
best
show.
explanation so
You have
far.
to remind me of
100%.
the existence of Skrillex.
I love
I thought we were
Skrillex.
done with that
Hush.
fucker 10 years ago.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
Gross. Get that fucking
not. Justice for
dick
Skrillex.
cheese out of my ears. Gross.
I
You're
like
no
this
fun,
explanation.
John. Take those glasses off, John. You're no fun with the glasses.
Yeah, you did have a grumpy burger before the show, I feel like. I'm sorry.
No, I
man.
had grumpy linguine with clam sauce. That's what I had.
Oh, that's what it
That actually
is.
sounds pretty nice.
It was really good. But yeah, it's the Restore the Snyderverse monster.
We got Enterprising in the chat.
All of
offering
them
a solution.
combine what's like, it's like the dragon, or what is it, the dance from like the Super Saiyan dance from like Dragon Ball, but it's every Snyder cultists, and they combine into one, and they become just like this, like or Katamari Damacy, where it's like all of them get combined into one ball of fury and anger and bitchiness and incel crap to fucking just wreak havoc on
Okay,
everybody
but
trying to
Nico,
have fun.
That's what I'm
That's-
saying, Nico. That's what I'm saying. There's
It's-
there's nothing
good
else.
point.
Grund?
It's just
Thank
a
you,
light
Michael.
show. It could
Ground.
be drones. It could, Lord knows, it could
Fusion
definitely be drones.
dance. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't.
There you go.
I'm not a weeb. All right. I don't fucking know anime shit. All right. Give me a break. God damn.
Grumpy glasses. Got our grumpy glasses.
I'm grump, and then Liz and Dan are not so grump.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a Fraggle Rock
I'm
shirt. How
grump.
could I be grumpy wearing a Fraggle Rock shirt?
I'm wearing a. What am I wearing? I'm wearing my never-ending movie title letterbox shirt. Probably can't see it because it's very bright, but that's what I'm wearing.
Coolio.
I like this. Yeah, it's really old. It has a ton of holes in it, so I have to get a new one. But
No,
yeah,
no.
never-ending.
Okay, sorry. We this is not that kind of show.
I'm not showing you my bare chest, Dan. Gross. I don't want to scar the audience like that. What kind of inhumane asshole do you think I am? You know what? Don't answer that. All right, don't answer that.
I don't know, John. Like you have a history of some really great one-liners on the show. So,
yeah, and again, Lex brings up a good point. He says, "I don't think Circe would be in Superman because you don't. Because don't forget, James said Creature Commandos takes place before Superman."
But he did also say that Creature Commandos sort of sets up or it doesn't directly tie in, but he did hint that maybe there's some connection between the two. And I mean, obviously, we have been so far thinking, oh, it's the Frank Grillo character. Rick Flag Sr. is in both projects. Maybe that's the only connection. I'm just thinking, these characters exist in the same universe. Could it be that? It's also potentially, depending on if this is indeed in the first half of the movie or if it is in the third, the third act of the film. Obviously, I think if it is in the third act of the film, it's something that's super consequential. There'd be more of a rush than what they are here.
Well, and someone else said maybe that this was a kaiju, like, powering up or something like that, which I kind of got that feeling too, because it does look like that star thing from whatever, Suicide Squad 2, and we did see a clip of a kaiju in the teaser trailer a little bit, so that could very well be something along those lines. But again, they don't seem too concerned in the foreground, so I feel like this could be like New Year's Eve celebrations or something like that, or it could just be a projection from from one of the businesses or something like. But again, let's analyze it to death before we see the film. Why don't we do that?
I'm just saying, like, the theory that it's Circe in some way. I mean, when you see it now in action versus the still image, because in the still image over time, like, people have photoshopped it and you sort of like play telephone with it,
Right.
And so you look at the graphic there versus you look at it in the movie now. Because here's the thing, this shot a lot of this on like a volume-like stage, so like I'm sure that was an in-camera effect where they have like an LED, screen in the background. So it's not like a green screen. But then when you see it in the movie, the way it's color graded and everything, the way it looks, you could clearly tell there's not as much pink there. I mean, there is a good amount of pink, but like you said, there's also green and there's like a hint of blue.
If you go back to that other shot, his suit is already dirty. So it looks like he's already been in a battle.
Maybe this is in the early part of the movie, because like when you look at the trailer when he's like trying to save all those people in Metropolis from the kaiju, maybe it's like one really long day and like people are throwing cans of tomato soup at him.
That's a good point. Yeah, it could be some kind of montage of just like one thing after another. Yeah.
Like like I think because that would make sense, just like you said, like a big montage, and there that's the sequence. And if I go back here, you see here the way the suit is charred. That like that right there versus what we see here are not that different.
Very similar indeed.
So yeah, it's possible. It's possible, I suppose, that like because it could, in which case this could be like inside Stag Industries. Maybe that's where he is. Maybe we figured out what that location, that room is. But
hey, wouldn't it be great if we found out in real time in the theater with all of our other theater going friends and stop spoiling shit for ourselves? Wouldn't that be nice if we could do that?
No,
Just a
that's too
thought.
much.
I know that's nuts. That's crazy talk. It's just a thought.
And if we did that, we wouldn't have a show. So,
Well,
you know.
fair.
I love how
suppose.
in this visual right now, like, Green Lantern's clearly like, no, Liz, we're finding out now. And he's like,
Who's
firing
that?
off.
Who's that behind him? Is that Hawk? Whatever.
That's Hawk
What's the-
Girl. Yeah.
Thank
Hawk
you.
Girl, yeah.
Okay. Wasn't sure. Wanted to get the pronoun right. Hawk Girl. Okay.
And this is Stewart from Mad TV.
Man of Time saying that Boba Talks has a theory that this kaiju based on toy leaks. Lex has a baby kaiju.
Oh.
Maybe the one you see in the trailer is trying to retrieve their child. Now that would be really fantastical. And I mean, I guess James Gunn has said that Lex is basically a sorcerer in this movie, so like he's that smart. So
billionaires do like exotic animals, so
I think we have learned that.
Yeah.
Or they are themselves an exotic animal, because I don't believe Elon Musk is human. He's definitely not. So we just don't know if he's an animal or a robot.
I think he's an alien.
Yeah, not the good one like Superman either.
That's what I'm saying. Look at the damn Cybertruck. Spaceship ass. Anyway.
It's literally the truck from fucking Halo.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, but that thing's cool. That thing's cool and it actually works.
Speaking of Superman, you can see in the trailer, it's what's noticeable about the trailer when it first came out, when I first saw it, what was really noticeable to me was that it's not going to be, everything is great, people are happy, we're living in a world that's, very optimistic. And James Gunn sort of has hinted at the idea that in this world, Superman's ideals are sort of felt like, like they're old-fashioned. Like he comes across to other people in the world like his ideals are old-fashioned, and so he sort of almost has to remind people, of like what he stands for, and the will to do the right thing, and truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Like those ideals feel very dated in this world, much like the real world. I mean, like that's why like Man of Steel, like kind of weaved away from that comic book identity of of Superman.
Yeah, why would a comic book movie try to be like?
But dude, but also
crazy.
2013. I mean, that was very common. I'm just saying, like that was of its time.
Common, like the MCU was like done with its phase 1 by 2013. We had the event. We had a guy with a bow and arrow fighting aliens. What the fuck are you talking about,
dude? I'm just telling you, like there was a lot of movies. I'm not just talking about the MCU. Like it was the time.
Just saying.
That was the time. You can pick one example and say like that was the norm, but that was. I mean, yeah, the MCU was the MCU. But even in the MCU, like Tony Stark got blown up like almost 3 times in his own movies. The MCU isn't always bright and poppy itself. In fact, like all the movies coming out this year in the MCU minus Fantastic Four, the other 2 are meant to be much more gritty and more like spy thrillers, and people are actually getting shot and blown up. Like so, to that end, James Gunn did say that there's a lot of darkness in Superman, and the quote from him says, "This isn't Superman dealing with hope and optimism in light times. He's dealing with hope and optimism in very difficult, hard times, dark times, and that's what the movie is." And he's mentioned something to this effect before, the idea that this movie is about bringing us home, to a, kind of reminding us of the goodness in ourselves and what we can see in others, and that Superman is meant to be a reminder of that. And much like the world that we live in, where a lot of times when you bring up those ideals, people are like, well, get real, like this is the real world. In the world of this movie, Superman is dealing with the same thing, and yet he, is steadfast, in his way of doing things, because he knows and believes that what he's doing and what he believes in is the right thing, and so he just has to remind other people that the same. So, and again, not in a way that hopefully is preachy, but like again, the idea that Superman, his ideals feel outdated, not just to like in the world that we live in, but also the world of the DCU. When initially James Gunn got hired for this, we were like, oh, we're gonna get a much more classic, even some of his references, All-Star Superman and stuff, like we're getting like a Superman that's very, straight out of the comics, and you're getting a much brighter Superman, and we are, but just because Superman the character is that doesn't mean the world around him is that. Like, and that contrast I feel like is really, it's beautiful in the sense that it's gonna give us plenty of social commentary. surely, and I mean every filmmaker has a story to tell and something to say with whichever story that they're trying to tell, however politicized or not politicized it may be. Stories by their nature are political because you're trying to say something as a storyteller. But with that said, I mean, John, I'll ask you, what do you think James Gunn is trying to say here, and do you like the idea that, again, in this movie Superman is trying to remind people of those ideals that he embodies, but the world maybe sees as old-fashioned?
Yeah, I mean that's what I've been championing for the past couple of years since this was announced. I'm like, all right, let's really try to do this, and then it seems like we're going that way. I mean, we got that a lot with the TV show, and it seems we're getting this now because it's like it's I don't want to say it's easier to do like hope and optimism in light times because that's kind of what the Christopher Reeve movie was, but with this, I feel like that's definitely it's you have like a hopeful Superman in dark times. I think that's just way more interesting. That's way more endearing. That's way more. I feel like there could be more layers there. While Man of Steel, I felt was very hollow in its sensibilities, where it's like I feel like they tried to do that, but it like failed. So I feel like with this, they're actually like showcasing why this character works, why this character has remained relevant for 80 years, no matter how many naysayers say that's not the case. How, it's real adults aren't seeing this movie. Well, last time I checked, I am a real adult, so I'm going to go see this movie because I'm very much interested in it. So, that's just how it is. I don't care how many times he's called Diaper Man and all that shit. I don't give a fuck. This is gonna be a bomb ass movie, and if it's not, well, I'll go jump off a bridge. It's fine. I'll pull a George Bailey. It's okay. It's fine. But yeah, I'm not actually gonna do it, guys. Calm down. That's a joke. Bad joke. Dark joke. Calm down.
That's just John's
Grumpy glasses.
just his sense of humor or lack
but
thereof.
yeah. But I'm hopeful of this. I've been like it's one of those cases where it's just the more I see of it, the more excited I get for it, the more I talk about it, the more excited I get. I don't sound it. I apologize. I'm really tired right now. Again, I don't get sleep. I don't get as I mean, I'm not as bad as
do it
Dan,
to yourself,
but
man. I
know.
do it to yourself. I don't
And
get
it
it.
says the man who drinks monsters instead of fucking goes to sleep. So at
This
least I
isn't
don't drink.
Okay.
At least I don't drink monsters.
Anyway, moving along.
Anyway, but this is good.
Lizz,
I like this. James Gunn, thumbs up.
Liz, like, and this is great because, again, like John, you said, this is the kind of Superman story that people have been yearning for a long time. Not the kind of soulless version that we got, unfortunately, from Superman Returns, but maybe also not the one that goes, I mean, yes, the alien in angle of like this is an alien invasion sort of a thing, and Superman is a stranger, and a darker take with Man of Steel. Great take in my opinion, and it made a lot of money, but like maybe that was also not what people wanted. But people wanted maybe closer to what we are getting. And then Liz, like enterprising in the chat, said, hey, the whole idea that the MCU is a very bright and light set of films was kind of exaggerated because, again, Stark blew a hole through a guy's chest, and he did. Several guys. Ego literally has skeletons of dead children. So to that end, I mean, you could see a character that provides that sense of hope in a world that's not necessarily, full of hope all around him. Like, it doesn't need to feel like the Superman movie from 1978. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Again, just getting this version of Superman where obviously Superman is going to get beat up, bloodied. He's probably going to clash against all kinds of different characters, powered and non-powered, and most people will probably not have the same set of ideals he does, but that's the fight, the good fight that he is willing to fight. Like, what do you think about just it's sort of like Captain America if you're talking about the Marvel side of things, but what are your thoughts on what James Gunn said?
Yeah, well, like I said in the past before, Superman is my favorite superhero of all time, and it is because he's an alien that comes to our world and sees bad things happening and realizing that he can make a difference, realizing that there is the greater good out there. It's not about himself, it's not about his family, it's about everyone collectively and what's best for our world. And times get really dark and bad things happen and there are really bad people out there, but if you can continue to be the bigger person and provide service and help your fellow man, then no matter what, you'll be victorious every time. So I appreciate this for sure. Again, having said that, I have historically been very disappointed for various reasons with every iteration of Superman after the Christopher Reeves films. So again, just like John, I'm so very excited for this film because it's the first time that I feel like I'm not going to be let down in any way.
To be fair, you're a James Gunn super fan as
I
well.
am. Well, I am and I'm not.
Well, partly
you know,
partly kidding.
I am and I'm not. I still feel that he needs to pump the brakes and stop talking all the time. But I am looking forward to it for sure. And hearing that this is what matters the most to them about this character, I think we're certainly heading in the right direction. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm again, it's killing me that we have to wait six and a half months.
Yeah.
It's
we're gonna
crazy.
get trailers. I mean, look, it is the year of Superman, right? Like that is the theme here. So given that we have a good 6.5 months, like you just said, till this movie actually comes out, and 2 weeks after that, Fantastic Four comes out, and then a few months before it, is it February or March? I think Captain America 4 is coming out much sooner, and then we have Thunderbolts. February, right? And then we have
Thunderbolts is in May because Marvel always releases stuff around my birthday. Thank you, Marvel. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
It's gonna be a big year for the comic book genre because, of course, Marvel has 3 movies on deck. DC's got the 1 movie. And for Marvel, like at least one of those movies got pushed from last year because Captain America 4 was supposed to come out in 2025. But given the offerings that are on deck. I don't think there's
2025.
Sorry, 2024.
2024.
It was supposed to come up, but because of the strikes, the Captain America 4 got pushed to 2025,
and it got reshot 12 times between.
Yes, clearly, and the Batman
so they can
2
make more trailers. So they can
make more trailers.
Yeah.
So they can put Giancarlo Esposito in the movie without interacting with anybody.
That is kind of crazy. I have noticed more and more of that he is not in a lot of scenes with other. I mean, then again, we haven't seen the movie itself, so you never know. But
speaking of Zack Snyder, that's what happened with Tig Notaro in Army of the Dead. Right, they had to replace the guy who fucking raped somebody. Yeah. I mean, that's what it was. So, like, it is. She didn't interact with anyone. It was so awkward, but it was so funny. I mean, that was such a bad movie, but like, it was so. She was like the best part of it because she was just like, I have no idea what's going on, so I'm just gonna do whatever the fuck I want, type of thing. So, Tig Notaro was definitely the best part of Army of the Dead. Not a good movie, but she was fun.
Well, look, Man of Time saying James Gunn has proven that he can handle dark themes at Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I felt bad for Rocket at the end, and I left the cinema smiling and happy for them. He's done that with, quite frankly, all 3 Guardians movies. I mean, all 3 of them had like really dark themes, but also endearing characters who you got to learn more about, and then like them as the movie went along. And that's what a good storyteller does. And James Gunn is clearly one of the best in the business right now. Now, TC20 was saying Dan mumbling whenever John says something out of pocket kills me. No, I'm trying to talk over John, but you guys can't hear me. That's what's going on. Retro's back. I don't know, man. Are you on your lunch break already?
Get to your exam, buddy. Get to your exam.
But Antonio's making a good point, right? We're talking about the year of Superman, but there's 6 Marvel TV shows, including I think 2 or 3 animated ones, and then there's a bunch of live action ones, including of course Daredevil. You've got Wonder Man, and then of course you have the animated Spider-Man show, The Eyes of Wakanda. But then in the movie side, you got,
It's too much.
Too much. Well, okay, but fair enough. But I'm just saying. Altogether, Marvel has 9 things. DC has 2 things. You've got Superman, and then you've got Peacemaker. Now, amongst, at least in the movies, there's 4 movies coming out this year from the big comic book players, at least. I wanted to ask, given that we were talking about 2025 being, let's say, the year of Superman, he's certainly the highest profile character that's going to be coming to our screens this year in terms of, like, he's the original superhero. He's the biggest name that DC has to offer. He's obviously got a lot of pedigree behind, and then you've got somebody like James Gunn is meant to kick off a whole new cinematic universe. Fantastic Four is probably Marvel's biggest project on the other side of the aisle. Now, between the 4 different movies I've mentioned, do you think, I'll start with you, Liz, do you think, given that DC is going to make a really big push for the Superman movie, and it stand as the singular DC project this year, will it be the best comic book movie of the year? And also considering that it's being directed by James Gunn, you look at the other 3 movies. I don't think any of those movies are being directed by anybody with the same resume or the caliber of resume as James Gunn.
Well, again, I'm really hopeful for Fantastic Four, but again, until I see a trailer, I can't really elaborate on that too much. I do think it will be, just because it's been talked about so much, it's been hyped up so much. Just again, those numbers alone with just the teaser trailer, it's so impactful. People have been waiting for a new Superman film. This is a star that no one really knows. I think it's going to be a huge success. Again, the fact that it's coming out in the summertime really helps things as well. So we'll see, but for me, I think so. I mean, certainly, again, we know Captain America is not going to be great. It'll still make some high numbers, to be sure. I think Thunderbolts will probably do better. Fantastic Four, I think, will do better than both of those. But I would say, again, as long as it's a good one, you know, everybody was excited for Joker 2, and that was a complete waste of time. And the numbers reflected that after opening weekend, with all the reviews and people coming out saying, don't even waste your time. But again, I don't see that happening with this. I really, really don't. I'm trying not to be overly optimistic, but I just can't help myself. Everybody's enthusiasm, you know, about this project, just, it gets me really, really hype and really excited. So at the very least, it's going to get butts in seats, regardless of how anybody feels about it. At the end of the day, they are going to be pulling in some serious numbers. Opening weekend for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like, the opening weekend could be huge, but the movie has to be good in order for people to come back and then tell their friends about it, and then more people come to watch it the second weekend and beyond. Now, Antonio's saying something I think that's very interesting point, John. So he's saying that it, regardless of whether it's good or bad, is going to be the most talked about movie of the year, and you can take that to the bank. So
I guess you could say, in a way,
here we go.
He's Superman. He's not just anybody, you know. Whatever good character or bad, he's going to change the world. In you know, according to Kevin Costner.
I see what you did. I see what you did.
I don't remember the whole quote.
But I remember it. He's like, good or bad, you have to decide what kind of man you want to be, Clark.
And whoever that man is going to change the world.
That man will change the world. Yeah. Yep.
So I fucked it up. Yep. I fucked it up. That's
okay.
My bad. But
I'm
like,
here
I
for the
tried
save.
to
I got you.
Bridge
it's
it.
Fine.
You know, it kind of worked anyway. But like, that was the first thing I thought of when Antonio said that, good or bad, he's going to be talked about. And it's like, good or bad, he's going to change the world. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. Let's hope it's not Joker Folie à Deux, and let's hope it's more Deadpool and Wolverine.
Well,
but,
okay.
You know,
well, with that said, though, John, I do,
bro. Like, sorry to cut you off, but like, that's straight up. Like, I've seen so many people that are like, "Oh wow, this trailer, this movie looks like complete garbage," but I'm totally gonna watch it because of crypto. I saw at least like dozens of comments for that where it's like, movie looks like shit, but I'll watch it for crypto. And I'm like, you know what? I'll take it. Doggos for the win. You know, dogs bring butts in seats. So fuck it. Let's
and
go.
Look at him. He's the goodest boy. He's the goodest boy.
Take us home. Take us home, crypto. Let's go. Now I want to watch the trailer again just to see crypto again.
It's great. But the, you know, the point that some of you guys are making in the chat, and I want to ask because it is a good question. Well, the DC fandom is split. Do you think this movie will make a statement? Do you think, John, like, this will unite the DC fandom?
No. Nah, fuck no. There's nothing, like, world peace won't unite this fucking fandom, all right? Like, fucking Zack Snyder can fuck James Gunn in the ass, and they still wouldn't unite over anything. Like, they can furiously make out on stage, and nothing will, like, nothing will unite this fan base, not even close. So just don't even think about, don't even think that it's going to do that. It's a shame. It's sad because I want, you know, we all come together and sing Kumbaya. Like, we all wish that to be the case, but that's just not the case. That's never going to be the case when it comes to fans and their weird us versus them mentality. That's never going to happen, unfortunately. So,
well, Okay, so then Antonio is continuing to make the same point, but he does have something interesting to say here, and I want to ask you guys this. It's going to be the most talked about movie by everyone, and regardless of whether it fails or succeeds, does that put a lot of pressure on it? Because again, Fantastic Four could be mediocre, but it's still part of the MCU, and they still are going to be in those two Avengers movies, and they'll probably end up getting a sequel. And then the MCU still has a pretty high floor. Like even Ant-Man 3 that a lot of people hated made $400 million.
I don't get
$400
that. I didn't
million
hate it.
dollars, as far as the connected universe of the DC side of things goes, was like the highest amount that any DCU movie made. I think like Aquaman 2 and then Black Adam were kind of in that range, and that was the highest the DCEU accomplished in the last few years of its existence. I mean, the Batman obviously made over 700 million, but it's not part of the DCU. It's the DC, Elseworlds, but it's not the same thing. So, do you feel like with the amount of pressure that is on this movie, it feels like it's got the most pressure of any movie to succeed. Obviously, Fantastic Four has expectations. Yeah. Thunderbolts, I think, is like a free pass. Like if it's great, people will love it. If it's not, nobody's gonna like cry a river over it. And then Captain America 4, a lot of people seem to have either made up their mind about it. So chances are, with expectations being pretty low, that if it's good, then a lot of people are like, oh my god, it was a lot better than I thought it was. Like that's more. Yeah. Or if it's bad, people are like, okay, great, I knew it was gonna be terrible. Of course it's bad. But with Superman, the conversation feels different. Like it's just there's a lot more pressure. Obviously, James Gunn is feeling it. He has said as much. So do you feel like that just adds a lot more, room for failure in a manner of speaking? That like if this movie, for example, right, like when Warner Brothers put out Man of Steel, spent over $200 million making it. They made 600 some odd million dollars. It was a profitable movie, but it wasn't like the kind of success critically, and it wasn't $1 billion movie. They thought they should have done better. That's fair, but they still were like, you know what, this is good. We're gonna keep going. And then, then they decided to kind of try to catch up with Marvel in one goddamn movie rather than trying to build up a little more slowly, and that was their fault.
Yeah.
But that first movie, mixed results, but still did good enough to justify more. Do you think this Superman movie has more pressure on it than even, let's say, Man of Steel did? Because before Man of Steel, people were like, "Oh, Brendan Routh Superman, 2006." It wasn't that great, but it wasn't the worst thing ever. But Superman as a character was really not like a bang. Now Superman, I feel like this version of the character has a lot more to accomplish with that one movie.
Yeah. So, but again, I also feel like that's a problem of James Gunn's own making, because he has been talking about it continuously. He has, like, not to say that he's been shoving it down our throats, but it's not the marketing of Wicked, but it seems as though he's talking about it every single day, and this is the project that he wants people to keep in the forefront of their minds, even though he has other things coming down the pipeline. So in that regard, I think he's putting a lot of pressure on himself and on the studio and on the movie. But Antonio made a point earlier that they believe that Fantastic Four is going to make the most money. I keep forgetting that RDJ and Chris Evans are coming back, because they're always talked about as if it's a completely separate film. Mm-hmm. And so in that regard, Antonio is absolutely correct. I think they're going to make the money just on those two stars alone coming back, mm-hmm. just so everybody can kind of see what they're doing. But again, the amount of hype that this film has had, the little snippets that they've been throwing at us here and there, the teasers, the fact that this is a fairly unknown actor surrounded by all of these really big other, cameos with all of these other well-known actors, award-winning actors who are beloved by fans. I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic to see how the two do by the end of the year, for sure. But I'm still, as of right, again, because we don't have trailers for anything else, I'm really looking forward to this one, and for me, I think this right now is at the top of all the comic book projects that we're going to be getting this year.
Yeah, but it's just ultimately there's a lot this movie has to accomplish, John. So, do you think that Superman's shoulders can bear the weight of expectations that this movie has got?
Bro is Atlas right now. Are you kidding me? Like, holding up that goddamn world, which actually literally happened in the comics. So yeah, bro's holding up the world. these fandoms, this entire universe, the multiverse, everything. It's like literally everything is on his shoulders. But since it's Superman, we know he'll persevere because that's what Superman does.
Yeah. Well, speaking of persevering, of course, the trailer for Superman is breaking more and more records as the time goes by. So this was put out earlier today. I saw this on DCU Central's account on Threads, but you can go and find this on YouTube. Just look at the number of views on the trailer. So Superman's teaser trailer has now outperformed all of the recent Marvel teaser trailers. So basically, the first trailer that any of the recent Marvel movies have put out, and it's gone up past 50 million views in just 12 days, not even 2 full weeks. That's a pretty big number, especially in the post-pandemic era, because I remember even back in the day when like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War were coming out, like even those movies weren't, necessarily always blowing these kind of numbers out of the water. And the ones that did, the ones that do sit above Superman, they all made at least like, $1.5 billion, $2 billion. So if you're going off of just the trajectory, Superman is certainly on a really good trajectory here. But what are your thoughts on, again, just the numbers? The mind-boggling numbers. Again, the idea that it's the most talked about movie. It's got the most pressure to succeed.
Well, I think it shows that fans are hungry for it. We've been waiting for another iteration of Superman. We've been waiting for a good iteration of Superman, a decent project that we can all agree upon. Because again, it's for some reason they've all kind of been misses. And I just think it's really exciting. And hopefully we get the film that we're all anticipating, but I really don't see how they're going to let us down with this one. I just really don't.
Yeah. I mean, the first trailer also, I think it accomplished everything they wanted to accomplish. It told you the tone of the movie.
By giving us no information at all, yeah.
Well, no, but that's exactly what a teaser trailer is. The teaser trailer does not tell you the story.
Even though people fucking complained about that. It didn't show us anything. Like, that's literally the point.
Really? It didn't show you? To me, there were like at least a dozen characters. There's too many characters in this movie. Well,
I think they were talking about.
No, I think that's cool. I think that I'm excited about that.
I like that. I prefer that. That's what I want to see in a teaser trailer.
But a teaser trailer is not supposed to give you the story. Like even.
But it's like. It's just so weird because it's like if James Gunn actually did show us something, he showed us the entire plot, just like in BVS. Like these motherfuckers will complain about everything, no matter. You can create the most perfect fucking movie ever made.
You could bring Christopher Reeves back from the dead, and it will still.
I mean, Andy Muschietti tried to do that, and it kind of failed. So
speaking of, go ahead. I think you've made your point, but yes,
it's just like aggravate. Like no matter what, like I can't imagine being in that like I know I can be cynical about a lot of things. I know I am, but like I still like if I was that cynical, I would have fucking blown my brains out fucking years ago. I can't imagine being that fucking miserable of a human being to really just go through life like that. And I'm like, God, that is so painful. That's painful. I can't imagine how you live life like that. That's just, I don't. I'm sorry. That's just, y'all are insane. Not y'all, but like the people that act like that. It's just, Jesus fucking Christ.
But anyway. By the way, Ricardo's question, I have seen that people are getting YouTube ads with the trailer, like that actually is being used as the ad itself. The trailer is being used as an ad.
And people are complaining about that too. Oh my God! How dare there be an advertisement for a movie like a trillion other movies that are in that? How dare an advertisement be an advertisement? La gasp! Like, all right.
I don't mind. It makes me think of like when U2 released their album for free on every iTunes account and everybody collectively lost their shit.
Okay, that was messed up.
What?
How
it's
dare
it's
they?
free. What's
I don't
the problem?
care.
If you don't want it, then delete it. What's the? That's so wild.
You couldn't.
To me. Like that's
the problem. But that was a problem. They forced it onto you. I don't agree with you, Liz. You couldn't get rid of it. I had that struggle.
Free. What do you mean you couldn't get rid of it?
No, you like straight up you couldn't delete it. Like you couldn't actually delete. People have made playlists that include their entire library except the YouTube. Like straight up, people are still getting iPhones, and it's still on their account because
Is that
they
true?
can't get
Oh
rid
my
of it.
God. See, you guys, this is why
Yeah.
I don't fuck with Apple. This is why I don't fuck with Apple.
okay,
Android
but
Android, baby.
forever.
that was the
Oh my God.
that was the
That's
first
funny
and
as
last
fuck,
time.
actually. Y'all got played on that one. That's
I'm just
hilarious. I
look.
did not know that.
It was the
Just
first and
made my
last time
day.
Apple made that mistake. It was like they were
That
like,
just
"Sorry,
made my-
Bono,
that's
we are just not
hilarious.
doing that again."
That is
So-
hilarious. Good for Bono and the Edge. Good for them. Hilarious.
But but earlier you mentioned, Liz, Christopher Reeve. So this is a quote, a couple of quotes pulled from the Christopher Reeve documentary, the Superman, the Christopher Reeve story,
Which
and
you should all go see.
it's now streaming. You can watch it on Max, wherever you are, and if you don't have Max, you can probably get it on digital, or you
Cry
can
for 2
see it on a
hours
different
like I
streaming
did.
service. But there's a couple of nice quotes in here, which I think is also again the embodiment of who Christopher Reeve believed the character of Superman was meant to be. And again, just a reminder of, I think we're sort of returning to that iteration, that take on the character with the new Superman movie. So he says in this, like, what is it to be an orphan? What is it to be different? What is it to be an alien? What is it to have lost one home? And now you're acting something you can understand, just talking about how we approach the character rather than just posing as like this strong man in a costume with an S on your chest. So it's just, again, I think Christopher Reeve got the character.
Oh, yeah.
He understood
I mean,
who
there's
Superman was.
a
That's why he's
great
the GOAT.
interview with him. I think this was like right after Quest for Peace. I don't exactly remember. It was like right after like one of the movies. I think it was either right before or right after Quest for Peace. And he was talking about, like, the interviewer was like, what does Superman mean to you? He's like, a friend. That's what Superman is to their friend. He's like, in a world where it's just progressing faster than human thought, where like nobody knows who you are, you're in this big city, like the bank doesn't know who you are, you don't have a neighbor anymore, you don't have like true friends anymore, you're just kind of stuck in this like that you're stuck in this like crazy world where it's just like so like just like powering down on you that you just like what do I do, where do I go? And Superman's that helping hand that everyone needs. And I'll try to find the interview because it's a really really good clip, and it's like Superman is like that, like embodies those old traditional American values of like being there for one another, being a friend when you need it,
Right.
just like
Being part of the
traveling
village.
miles to give your neighbor like a donkey or something, like just like that old school nature, and that what we all need in our lives. And that's just so like it showcases that he is the man he was playing, even though he didn't see himself as that. He really was. He's like, I'm just playing a character. Well, it's like so many. Well, it's like, sorry, man, you're an icon now.
Yeah, you're bigger than
no
that,
matter
yeah.
what you do,
Well,
you're gonna be this icon.
Well, and
It's
it
just
goes
like-
back to that. It goes back to the whole Trunks conversation too, right? Like the whole reason that he dresses the way that he dresses, so people know right away he's a good guy and he's a friend and he can be trusted. So I mean, you guys really need to see that documentary. It's so wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, and enterprising saying again, the Christopher Reeve basically said Superman was a good neighbor. That's the mindset that, again, in the world
He's
of
the
this new
Mr. Rogers of
he's
the
literally
superhero.
superpowered Mr. Rogers. Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what this Superman movie is trying to remind us. Like, maybe return to a world with those set of ideals. Or like there's a lot of people out there in the world who still have those ideals. It's just we feel like they're far and few in between. So hopefully, I mean, this movie could be a cultural moment. Like, it can capture the cultural zeitgeist in a way very few movies can. So I'm looking forward to it. And I'm, the year of Superman is only just beginning. So.
Yeah, and one final thing, another great quote that I found right before this that I was going to mention, but now I finally remembered it, where it was from Grant Morrison, who famously wrote All-Star Superman and a whole bunch of great Superman comics. They were like, somewhere in our darkest hour, we made up the story of a man who will never let us down. That's all it is. That's the epitome of everything of this character. He'll never let us down, no matter what. We don't talk about injustice. Just ignore that part. But yeah, I think that really gets everything of this character.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have to keep the ball rolling here because the very first thing in the DCU, of course, is Creature Commandos, and that has already been out for a few weeks, and now we are on the verge of episode 6, the penultimate episode of the show. I'm looking forward to seeing where the story goes next. You're gonna get a Dr. Phosphorus focused episode. You haven't gotten that yet, but Dr. Phosphorus has already been a fan favorite, so I'm excited to see where they take this story. I unfortunately am a little behind on the show, so I will probably have to watch a few other episodes before I get to this one. But the two of you have been watching, so I want to start off with you, Liz. What are you most looking forward to in this penultimate episode of the show? Episode 6 out of 7. James Gunn has already posted about it. He wished us a happy new year, and the way he did it was by talking about Creature Commandos. And it is literally hours from now that the episode releases. What are you most looking forward to in this episode? And is there anything particular you want to see? Is there anything you don't want to see in the episode 6 of Creature Commandos?
Well, I'm already looking forward to being disappointed because the episodes are only like 22 minutes long, and it drives me insane every time an episode ends because it's just not enough. Like they're so good, and the way they build characters and the storylines, they're also unique, and how all of these people end up together on this mission. It's not enough. It just drives me crazy. But I love all of it. Like, again, we talked about it last week that the episode we had with around Frankenstein was way too short. It felt like it was 10 minutes long, and it was been and gone, and that was it. And I need more, James. You're killing me. Like, they need to be at least hour-long episodes. But I'm looking forward to wanting more. That's pretty much where I'm at right now, week to week.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be Alan Tudyk centric. That's what I'm excited about. Although I thought Liz was going to say the most disappointing thing that she's gotten from the series is the fact that Alana hasn't died yet.
I mean, there's still time. We've got 2 episodes to get there. But now I'm kind of annoyed because I don't know if anybody's been watching. Now I'm kind of annoyed because maybe her character's not what we thought, and that pisses me off too. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. I'm really excited for the next 2 episodes because I feel like we have not gotten enough Dr. Phosphorus this season. Like,
yeah.
it's just kind of
we haven't gotten enough of anyone, really, in my opinion. I
feel like we've gotten a lot of the Bride and Frankenstein.
Been a lot of the Bride and Frankenstein. Yeah.
Like that's like fair. The main stuff. Obviously, we've gotten a lot of, Rick Flag Sr., but I feel like that's kind of it. I feel like, we did get a fair bit of Weasel, but I feel like Dr. Phosphorus and Nina Mazursky were like the ones that were going to get like a lot of screen time, and then they haven't. But obviously, we'll get them in these last 2 episodes because those were the characters I was looking forward to the most because I love the design of Dr. Phosphorus. He's definitely a pretty cool character, and Alan Tudyk is God, so there's that. And then Nina Mazursky has those Ratcatcher 2 vibes. Ratcatcher 2 was my favorite character in the Suicide Squad, so I really like those aspects, and I think we're gonna be getting hopefully the best episodes of the season with these last 2 episodes. So that's what I'm hoping for, and I think we might be getting, because there's a lot of promise with this next episode with Dr. Phosphorus' backstory.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and Manus Time saying, I wonder if they're going to bring back G.I. Robot. I mean, hey, that could be a surprise. We know there's a season 2 coming, so maybe they will do that.
Who's the character? Who's the aquatic character? I'm drawing
Nina
a blank.
Mazursky.
Nina. Yeah. So the only thing I will say, I feel like we have no information about her. Like, she always just seems to be very like meek and like hide in the corner whenever some type of conflict pops off. I would like to see an episode around her, but it doesn't. I feel like we're not going to get that this season.
No, we're getting it next week.
You think so?
Not this coming, not tomorrow. Next week is going to be her episode, because literally each character was going to get their own episode.
I know, but I feel like there's going to have to be some way to resolve this whole princess situation. So I was wondering if the last episode was going to be like the big battle or what have you to resolve this storyline. So I didn't feel like they were going to potentially take, focus on her character. Because again, we only get 22 minutes. So I'll be really interested to see how they do all of that in
I think
one
the
final episode.
problem with it all was the fact that I think the biggest flaw of this show so far is the fact it is only 22 episodes, and we're 22 minutes per episode. My bad.
Yeah.
For 7 episodes, and on top of the fact, the problem is it's backstories.
Why 7? But why 7? The Penguin, we got 8 episodes. Why 7 episodes? Like, I just want more.
Because it's there were 6 characters. Well, the first episode had to be the setup, and then the next 6 were going to be about each member of the.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The first one was the setup, then the 8th one should be like the total, the wrapping it all up, finishing off with a nice bow, or give us, lead us into season 2. Like, James, it's just not enough for me. It's not enough.
Yeah, I think because that was the biggest issue, was that it's the backstories and it's a mission. I don't think they should have done both. If they did do both, it should have been at least 30 to 35 minutes per episode.
I'm saying.
I think 45 to an hour would be way too long, and I can imagine that their animation budget was already stretched thin, so that's probably why we didn't get a ton of time or a ton of episodes. So, because as we all know, David Zaslav hates animation, so they probably didn't have the budget to really do what they really wanted to do. So they should have just had like a big, the pilot should have been like an hour, and then have that be all the backstory, have that be the setup and the backstory, and then the rest of the season,
or even again
been the
even episode
story.
7, like so TC24 said episode 7 is going to be the longest at 28 minutes. Have episode 7 be an hour. We give it, all the 22 minutes. Okay, fine. Have episode 7 be an hour, so you can take that time to tell Nina's story, but then also wrap everything up and lead us into season 2. But again, it's I guess it's kind of a nice problem to have, being so in love with it that you're disappointed that it's, we're not getting more. So in that regard, they're doing their job.
Yeah. I have a feeling that we're definitely gonna get Phosphorus versus Rupert Thorne, and it seems like Phosphorus is gonna be like this big mob boss, which is definitely different from Phosphorus in the comics, from what I know of him, what little I know of him. So that's definitely interesting. So I just want more Alan Tudyk. That's all. Bro voiced 3 episodes. All we got were grunts and growls from Clayface. Will Magnus was in 1 episode, and Dr. Phosphorus barely. It's like, bro, this is your golden goose. Gotta use more of him, goddammit. Come on now.
I mean, hey, Enterprising saying Smooth Criminal. Yeah, that could be I don't know, a Smooth Criminal. Is it on the playlist? Because James Gunn posted the Spotify playlist for this episode. I don't know if that's actually in the on this episode, but in the
trailer we hear a lot of more like Gogo Bordello type music, so we'll see. But the soundtrack's a banger, you guys. It's a straight banger. I'm loving it.
Well, the playlist is updated. You can go listen to the latest editions for episode 6, and it drops in literally, I think for us in the East Coast, or in general anywhere you are, the show drops episode 6 in, I believe, a little over 4 hours from now, if you're watching us live. So go check it out. Of course, come back and talk to us about it, because we'll be here talking to you about it soon. And we'll have it on the show tomorrow.
Hey, Lenny.
But like right now, I want to kind of switch gears again. Let's switch over to talking about Batman. And I know we have talked about this on a couple of occasions, but I just haven't had my fill.
And we don't need to talk about. We have a whole year and a half before we need to talk about it at this point.
But that's the problem, you see.
Exactly.
Because so James Gunn literally said, "Okay,
justice for Batman, justice for Batman."
Justice for Batman. But yeah, James Gunn did kind of respond to fans saying, "Hey, did Matt Reeves lie about the script for the Batman 2?" And just saying, "Hey, he didn't lie. He said they were finishing the script, i.e., he's not finished." And I was like.
Right.
Okay, I get it. Like, if even James Gunn is getting tired
I
of
think
people
James
just
feels bad. I think
How
James feels
convenient.
bad because Matt Reeves, I guarantee you, is having a really rough time right now, and I think James feels bad because he did kind of throw him under the bus when talking about it in the past. I don't know. I think they need to stop talking about it, honestly, at this point. Like, they told us 2027, leave it there, focus on the other projects you have coming out, stop talking. Because for me, I feel really bad for Matt Reeves, honestly, at this point. It's just he's like enemy number one right now, and it's not right.
Look, to me, this is still kind of inexcusable. The fact that you're 3 years into working on it and you don't have a finished script, and then that James Gunn was like, we have to push this another year because if you're gonna go into production on it late 2025, later this year, then you just don't have enough time to do everything you need to do to really bring this movie up to the level that James Gunn expects it to take. So I do appreciate that. I mean, this from James Gunn's perspective, he's not doing anything wrong. This is one of those situations that he inherited, and now he's trying to do his best to move forward with it. From Matt Reeves' perspective, I'm like, come on. I understand that when this movie got delayed because of the writer strikes, and we went from getting it in 2025, like October of this year, to October of next year. But then to delay it from 2026 to 2027, there's no reason.
Yeah.
Matt Reeves has been hinting at the fact that he's working on the script and finishing the script the whole freaking last year, 2024. I remember, John, you and I talked about it many times that he was, I'm working on it. Oh, I'm still working on it. I'm figuring it out. I'm working. We're gonna finish it soon. It was like January all the way through, like from the moment the strike.
I'm almost there. And for the next
but Manos Time makes a really good point. Apparently it's a personal problem. Why doesn't Gunn just say, hey, Matt has his reasons and we respect what's going on. We're giving him his time, his space. But again, also stop fucking talking about it. Stop talking about it. The more that you talk about it, the more pressure that you're putting on it. I mean, we're never going to get a complete finish of the Game of Thrones series. It's just not happening. The poor man is going to keel over and die before we get those books. And nobody's, showing up at his house with pitchforks and freaking torches. Like,
I don't know about you, but
it's just like, shit happens. But again, the fact that they keep talking about it is the problem at this point.
The whole personal issues thing, it's nobody's confirmed it. Yeah, I know Jeff Snyder said it, and for all we know, it is true. But it's and again, I'm not trying to sound like I'm not sympathetic to Matt Reeves and whatever he's going through, and hopefully if it is something in his personal life, hopefully he can get through it and come out the other side. But it's still, from a professional standpoint, I'm just like, you have to move a little bit quicker. And it's like I mentioned the other day, it's been 3 years. I'm like, whatever is going on in his personal life couldn't have been going on for 3 years. Did he just put the script away and say, I'm going to get back to it in 2025, or 2024? Then he didn't do anything for the preceding 2 years since the Batman came out, because they greenlit the Batman 2 pretty much while the Batman was in theaters. Yeah. So he's had plenty of time. When the first movie was coming out, he was talking about the sequels. He was like, I've got an idea where we're gonna go. So it's not like he didn't know what to do with the story. So
and to that point, I've been wondering as well. Well, then why don't we just get another writer? Why don't we just say, thanks, Matt, but you clearly need a break. You can't get it done when we need it to be done. It's not personal, it's business. So tell this writer what your thoughts are, the direction you want to go, and we'll take it from here. I agree with you that it has been plenty of time, but again, for some reason, this is the guy and this is who James wants, and he's letting it happen.
Yeah, but don't put him on blast.
Well, I don't think saying
no. I'm talking about this.
No, I know, but I'm saying I don't think saying like, hey, we're giving him the time that he needs. I don't think that's putting anything on blast. But again, stop bringing it up then. If you know the guy is potentially going through something, if you know that there's an acceptable in your mind reason why the script isn't complete, then fucking stop bringing it up. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, the only reason we're talking about it is because James keeps talking about it.
Yeah, I think this is where we pointed out the problem last time we discussed this, was the whole thing that Matt Reeves, I think, said a few months ago, that he's almost finished the script. Let me see if I can find it. His quote was that he's still working on it, he's just about done. And then when James Gunn said, I think this is really where like the problem comes from. Literally a few weeks before the news that they're delaying the movie by another year, James Gunn said, "Oh, no, I have not even seen, I've not even seen the first draft of the script yet." So it just sort of set things back a little. Whereas, Matt Reeves was purposely being vague about it. James Gunn went in and was very specific about the fact that he hasn't even seen a draft.
Because he's
So
saying too much.
all of a sudden and then when weeks, it's like I said, it's a bad optics. But I just still think it's kind of, it doesn't justify the delay. Like he works slowly, but like here's the thing. The bottom line is this franchise now has gone from being one where they could have done 4 or 5 movies and a bunch of TV series to now one where we're barely going to get a trilogy. And then I don't know how that affects everything else, because if they're going to keep the story that the Batman 2 takes place weeks after the first one, and that, it's the same year, the same calendar year, and the events of the Penguin take place in between the first and second movies, then can you do anything for, like, because they should have, in an ideal world, released a Batman 2 and then done a Penguin season 2, or brought Sophia Falcone back, or given Catwoman her own spinoff. But now I'm like, if he sticks with the story he has been writing, then everything else gets put on hold, because you can't do anything else because it's going to be so closely tied to this, or it will reference the events of the second movie that it will either be spoilery,
unless they do like a fucking prequel.
But
so here's my hope.
Prequel.
So here's my hope. Prior to the show, Dan, you had brought up the fact that Squid Game 3 is going to be released at the end of 2025. So we're getting both Squid Game 2 and Squid Game 3 within a year of one another. Exactly. And I'm hoping that it kind of turns into something along those lines, where he's taking this time, and not only is he getting Batman 2 written, but he's getting Batman 3 written, so that they can just go straight into the production.
Kind of like how James Cameron wrote 5 sequels to Avatar in like a weekend.
That's what I'm hoping. I think that's the only potential silver lining of this, is that we can finally finish these projects off in a reasonable amount of time for one another. But yeah, it sucks. Believe me, I'm not happy about it. I love the Batman. I've said it many, many times. So I totally understand. But like I said, James has other projects he could be talking about, so he needs to leave this one alone for now.
Yeah. Now, speaking of other projects he has to be talking about, of course, Batman Brave and the Bold, the DCU version of the Batman character, is also in a little bit of hot water recently, because James Gunn he mentioned, I think it was a couple of months ago at this point. I believe we had this from, let's see, it was in December. In December, he mentioned in one of the interviews, I think it was the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, and he was like, we're not quite there yet, and the scripts are not quite where I want them to be. And he was referencing specifically Brave and the Bold, Booster Gold, and the Waller scripts. So, of course, 2 of those are TV shows, and Batman Brave and the Bold is a movie. So he mentioned very specifically that he thinks that those still need more work. Now, that happened in early December. Then a few days ago, Andy Muschietti went on this podcast and talked about how there seems to be a delay, or it's taking longer to get the script done or ready for Batman Brave and the Bold. So he might work on something different, another movie perhaps in between now and then. Now, of course, going all the way back to when the movie was announced and the whole Slate announcement a couple of years ago, James Gunn at the time said that he basically attached Andy Muschietti to the movie right then and there. But we also knew at the time that Andy Muschietti was working on Welcome to Derry, which is a TV show prequel to the It movie franchise. So we knew that it would be a while before he would switch focus. So I think here the fan expectations were, oh, great, he's done with the TV show. The scripts for the movie is probably ready or about to be ready. Now he's going to go work on this thing next, right? And then, of course, James Gunn says, and it's true, for most studio movies, even smaller movies that aren't like a big studio movie, even if it's an independent film, for a director, taking on a movie means you're going to spend 18 months to 2 years of your life working on that film, unless you're James Cameron, then you spend the rest of your life on it. But it's a long time, right? So now for people to hear the news that, hey, Andy Muschietti might work on another movie before the Batman Brave and the Bold, and that the script isn't ready yet, and then there's a bit of a delay, it does lead you to kind of like believe, okay, wait, so was James Gunn not letting on just how far away we are from that script being completed? I mean, him saying it's not quite there yet versus Andy Muschietti saying it's not quite there yet. So far, it's so far from being not quite there yet that I'm going to spend the next 2 years working on another project before I even touch this thing. Those seem to be like two very like there's a gap there in between those two statements. Now I do want to read the translation of what Andy Muschietti said, because this podcast that he was on, I believe when we pulled it up originally, we looked into it, and it's not in English, it's in Spanish, right? Or it's either in Spanish or Portuguese, because Andy Muschietti's native language is not English. So the podcast that he was on was also not in English. So I do want to give a little bit of margin for error in saying that there is potentially something being lost in translation. So it is possible there, but James Gunn obviously said that it's not being delayed. Whereas Andy Muschietti went on there and he said that, hey, it's not as far along. There's another sci-fi project that I'm working on, and I think I'm gonna probably spend a bit of time working on that first. So yeah, I mean it's right here. The quote is right here. I'm now writing a science fiction movie that I would like to do. Batman is a project that's been postponed a bit, so there could be another film before it, possibly that one. So for him to be talking about it in such general, open-ended terms, regardless of whether there is, anything being lost in translation or not, he's clearly saying he could be working on a different movie before he even gets to the Batman film. Which, to me, I'm like, this is where Lizz, I really agree with you.
Get another director.
But it's regardless of whether to go with another director or not, there needs to be like more of this like streamlining the communication with the fans. Like you need to have a clear sense of communication where you cannot have James Gunn be saying one thing and the director of the movie be saying something completely different. And not that they're saying like, oh, one is saying apples, the other one's saying oranges. But like I said, the way the two of them are describing where the project is at, James Gunn made it sound like, oh, we're almost there. And we're going to get into production seemingly like soon, maybe later this year, the year after, because the script is almost done. It's not quite there yet, but that also implies that so it's most of the way there, but it's not all the way there. Whereas Andy Muschietti's saying, Matt Reeves he's taken 5 years to write his Batman movie. This one probably needs another 2 years, so I'm gonna go and work on something else. So to me, that gap is the problem, and the fact that James Gunn, I think he needs to tap Andy Muschietti on the shoulder and be like, hey man, look, just fall in line.
You motherfucker! What kind of fucked up shit are you saying on these podcasts?
And again, I'm not saying Andy Muschietti meant to do this. To me, though, it's clearly a problem, right? Like, I mean, Lizz, what do you think? They're saying two different things, and the implications are two very different. Like, according to James Gunn, we might be, if you go off of what he's saying, you could say, oh, maybe in 2024, or no, sorry, no, maybe in 2027 we might get a Batman movie. But if you go off what Andy Muschietti's saying, we might be waiting till 2030 for a Batman Brave and the Bold, which is a long ways away.
Yeah. If I were James Gunn, I'd be calling up Andy and being like, I need you to shut the fuck up, dude. But again, James has made the same mistake. So how about everybody just stop talking? Just until you know for sure, until everybody is on board, until you have an agreement across all stages of this production, shut the fuck up. Just because it's ridiculous. Like, and I mean, it's great for our content. Sure, it gives us something to talk about, but at the same time, like, it just when you're so disconnected like that, it not only looks unprofessional, but it looks like is your office just a complete chaos? Like, get your shit together. That's what I would think. I'm sitting here going, Jesus, guys, get a life. Like, it's just
get a life.
It's amateur hour at this point. I mean, it's embarrassing.
Yeah. Like Manos Time is saying, it's both a blessing and maybe also a curse in disguise, the fact that James Gunn is so open about sharing updates on social media.
It's too much. It's too much. But again, have all of your ducks in a row before you open your mouth. That's that's number one for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, whichever direction this goes in, I think James Gunn just needs to tape this down and
I think Jennifer Holland needs to take his phone away and chuck it across the room.
Truly. Just keep posting dog pictures, James. Like, just leave it there. Like, ridiculous.
I'm just saying, like, there just needs to be some level of clarification there. Like, James, I mean, the thing is, when James gonna address this, he said, like, oh, no, it's not delayed at all. Like, he said, it hasn't been delayed, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. And I guess in a manner of speaking, it's not delayed because it is a situation where they never
Because it's technically
announced the
not
release
greenlit.
date. Yeah,
So
so I
Right.
get it, but like the thing is, you cannot then respond to something like this by saying, oh, it's semantics because we didn't announce the release date, so technically it's not delayed. But clearly they had a plan in mind for the time frame over which this movie was gonna happen, and now it seems like it's taking longer than that. So it doesn't need to have a release date for us to know that, oh, it's taking. When the director tells you it's taking longer, that he was expecting for this to be his next project after the one he just finished, and now he feels like there's enough of a delay potentially that he can do another whole movie that he is writing, no less. He's not writing Batman Brave and the Bold, but he's writing this other sci-fi movie. I'm like, that all of a sudden, like I said, it stretches the time out. It's like maybe another 3 years before he even works on this thing, not just another 6 months. It's a big difference. So, and like I said, regardless of whether it's something being lost in the shuffle or not, like it's still a problem. Mr. Carter 2022.
Well, and again, it's still so new, and it's such early days with Gunn at the helm that you can't afford gaffes like this because you look ridiculous. You look unprofessional.
Yeah.
You make people doubt, the how well your projects are going to turn out. Again, we've got some great stuff so far, but when it already looks like you can't even keep your own people in line right in the beginning, that's not good. That's not good for business. It certainly doesn't motivate people to go out and seek out your projects. So either stop talking, or like I said, get your office in order, and then you guys can talk about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, Mr. Carter 22 saying, yeah, theoretically, if the script finishes fast and Andy starts a new movie, James can just go and get a different director. And I do hope that's exactly what happens, because this is the other thing. I mentioned it the last time we talked about this, that, hey, if Andy Muschietti is not taking this thing as like the biggest project of his career, then you know what? If the film is ready to go and James Gunn green lights the script, then get somebody else. If Andy Muschietti's too busy doing something else,
awesome.
I'm just it kind of goes both ways, right? Like if Andy Muschietti is not taking this, and to be honest, maybe Andy Muschietti is thinking, oh, you know what, I did The Flash, see where that got me. Maybe I'm better off going off and doing something that I want to work on, that I write versus somebody else writing it. So I don't know. I feel like there's something there that needs to be said. But justice for Batman in both fronts. Matt Reeves and Andy Muschietti. Get your shits together, you fucking clowns.
I'll direct it.
Exactly.
I'll
They
direct
do.
the
They look
Batman
like
movie.
clowns.
I'll write and direct it.
They look like clowns.
James Gunn,
That's
call
exactly the word for it.
Yeah.
Clown shoes, babe. Clown shoes.
Yep. Now,
I guess you could call them a couple of jokers.
Speaking of which, we don't really have a lot of jokers in the upcoming slate of the DCU. Great stuff. Yep. Damaged. #damaged.
Hashtag damaged. Thank you, Caleb. You can come in anytime.
Yeah. TC24 is like, let Batman breathe for a bit. I don't care. Give me Nightwing. I mean, and you know what? We might as well.
Honestly, yeah. Give us Nightwing.
I mean, and more Cat now asking a question about, do you see a potential rift between James Gunn and Matt Reeves over which villains they can use in which universe in the future of the DCU? I mean, honestly, here's the thing. James Gunn runs the show, so what he says goes. If he wants to use a villain and Matt Reeves is like, no, I'm using him, it's the hierarchy of power there. Well, but again, James Gunn gets his way.
Well, and again, we're 2 years out. So sorry, Matt, you should have gotten the script wrapped up prior.
How about you fucking write the movie? Maybe you can get the villains you want, you dinghole.
Well, exactly. Like, so I have 2 years to fuck around with other projects. I'm gonna do what I want. It's on you, buddy. Like, have the script when you said you were going to, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yep.
Snooze, you lose, man.
Exactly. Well, you know what?
Clearly you're sleeping a lot because, you're not getting the shit done.
Let's not assume things. But okay, before we get too deep into the personal lives of Andy Muschietti and Matt Reeves, because that wasn't the intention. We were just saying the projects they're working on or seem to be attached to, they need to just pay more attention. Like, they need to give, more time to it for Matt Reeves, work faster. For Andy Muschietti, if you can wait for a few more months, then wait for a few more months. It's a fucking Batman movie. You're not working on some random ass no-name character. It's Batman. Like, respect the IP. But anyway, we're talking about the DCU timeline. We want to have a longer conversation about this, and we will later this week. We have planned a longer conversation looking ahead to every project that is coming up in the DCU, and we've got a detailed timeline we're going to get into. There's a few dates attached to some of the projects, and then John is going to give us his idea of like where he sees some
Right.
of those projects taking place based on what we know so far. How do we fill the gaps with the other projects that don't yet have release dates? But today I want to kind of preview a little bit of that, John. So we've got a few things picked out. Of course, a few highlights of where the DCU currently stands. And I'm going to, start off by asking you about Clayface. We know it's coming out in September 2026, September 11th, 2026 specifically.
Awkward, but sure.
It's a weird time to pick that. But hey, it's the next movie, the next Warner Brothers film is starting to film in this year. The next movie to go into production after Supergirl. So what are your thoughts on the release date? Because before the Batman 2 got moved, they were coming out only weeks apart. Now it's kind of got the whole fall season to itself. What are your thoughts on this in terms of it's going to be a much smaller budget movie? It's coming out at a time of the year where it's not like a big blockbuster summer months. It's not the Christmas season. And again, it's September 11th. So that, I don't know, like you said, do you feel like this movie is going to be successful based on where it's being positioned? Do you feel like maybe the fact that this was coming out in September should have been a hint that the Batman was going to move? It's going to be part of the DCU, so obviously it's not going to tie into the story of the Batman 2.
Right.
Overall, what are your thoughts on this? And again, just a significant addition to the timeline of the DCU.
I'm curious with how this will be portrayed, because he did confirm that it's going to be DCU. So I'm like, okay, cool. But so we have Alan Tudyk as a Clayface. I don't think his name was ever mentioned in the episode. So he could be Basil Carlo. He could be Cassius Payne, Preston Payne, Lady
Wait,
Clay.
so you're saying there's more than one Clayface?
There's like 7 of them, my dear.
These are the things that I need to know. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So, and fun fact, Basil Carlo wasn't even like a clay monster. He was just like Phantom of the Opera, essentially, but as a Batman villain. Matt Hagen was the first one to have like the clay powers, and it wasn't until like the 70s or the 80s that Basil Carlo like took the powers of like 3 of the later Clayfaces and became the ultimate Clayface. So yeah, there's a whole thing with that. But I don't know if that's sarcasm or not, but I mean, I'd love to see it because I love Mike Flanagan. He's a great writer. He's a great director. But I was like really excited at first, and I'm still really excited when I thought Mike Flanagan might be directing it too, but it looks like he's just writing it. I'm holding out judgment until we get a director, because sure, we can get a really good script, but look what happened with like, this is always like the first thing I think of whenever I think of like a really good script but bad directing, like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Frank Darabont said he's like, that was the best script I ever written for the worst movie I've ever seen. So, you can make a bad movie out of a good script. So I'm just like, all right, we got to hold that, because like we could get someone like, he would never do it, but like someone like Robert Eggers, like someone that talented, do this movie. Not him himself, he would never do it. I'm just saying like a Jordan Peele or like Sam Raimi, Guillermo del Toro, who we mentioned. We could get someone of that caliber, but then we could also get like a really like one of like the Blumhouse guys who like made like one movie and it like Imaginary and it like sucked, and then they like get the guy who did like Smile 2 and have him fucking do this shit. Then the movie's like DOA, because you're getting a director that's like, you have a Mike Flanagan script, fucking use that, and so bring that in, and just try to get a good director, because that's gonna be like the glue, or maybe in this case the clay that holds this movie together. So you just got to get someone talented to helm this thing, since Mike Flanagan's gonna be busy for the next 10 years with all the fucking projects he's doing. So just get someone talented, please, for the love of God. Just don't get like some no-name jackass who doesn't have a vision. Get someone who equals the talent that we got with the script. Terms of box office, I can't imagine this one getting a shit ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're a hardcore DC fan, like I had never heard of Clayface before until joining this show. So, I mean, as if we get a decent enough trailer, I mean, now he's in
The thing
Creature
is, it's
Commandos.
Joker though. We've gotten Joker in live action movies. He's the most popular Batman villain. Of course,
Yeah,
Joker can make a bill. And you have Joaquin Phoenix.
right,
You had like a
right.
bitchin' cast. You had all that. Clayface is like a C tier Batman villain.
Yeah, almost a complete unknown. And I mean, but again, if we can get a decent trailer, James is definitely going to do the best he can to talk it up the entire year leading up to it. I mean, he's talking about it now already. So there's potential. Again, the direction that DC is headed, they're going to build back up that fan base. They're going to get more people on board with their projects. So it could potentially be a moneymaker, but time will tell. We can't really predict stuff like that this early, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, well, I considered that, but to be fair, Dan did say that he's with Universal right now because he's doing he's with Blumhouse, which is like a co-opted company with Universal, and he's doing a lot of Universal stuff right now. So I don't think James Wan would do it. I mean, I don't know what he's doing next actually, because there's one more Conjuring movie that's coming out soon, and he's not doing that.
Yeah.
The Conjuring
Enterprising
Last
is
Rites.
mentioning Guillermo del Toro. Still didn't say it right. I think that would be an interesting pick for something like
Yeah,
that.
the rumor is that it's going to be a $40 million movie. That's as long as they keep it in horror levels of, I mean, they have to give it a little bit more money because if they do the clay monster aspect, then it's going to be a little bit more money. But the thing is, if you use that right and you use if it's the James Gunn way, we're actually giving it for like nearly a year of VFX, especially a VFX heavy character like this, then I could see it working. Del Toro, I can't imagine because he's doing post-production on Frankenstein right now. So he's busy. He's not going to be able to do it. But, whoever they decide to get, I just hope he's good. Or she's good. They are good. Whoever they decide to get. Yep. I think we
know Robert Eggers is not going to direct anything in the present day, but maybe if they set this movie in the 20s, that would also kind of go together with the aesthetic of the animated series. I'm just saying.
I don't think that would ever happen. I don't think he would ever work on a comic book movie. He wants to do he has 5 different projects he wants to do right now. He wants to do a medieval knight movie. He wants to do a Western. He wants to do a Rasputin miniseries. He wants to do an H.P. Lovecraft adaptation. He wants to do another gothic horror movie. Let him do his thing. He doesn't want to. I wish we knew. I wish we knew.
We're still trying to figure it out. We're trying to workshop it ourselves. But I mean, look, Clayface is an interesting film because it's not a big risk, right? Like $40 to $60 million budget, as TC24 pointed out. And then if you get a big name director, whether it's even if it is not Guillermo del Toro or Robert Eggers, you could still get plenty of big names out there. Now, James Wan, you mentioned, John, is with Universal. That's true. But his deal with Universal doesn't preclude him from working with Warner Brothers. It's not an exclusive deal.
But to be fair,
I don't think come over.
I don't think he would want to come back after the chaos that was Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom production.
Yeah, but I mean, both of those movies were chaotic. The first one still made $1 billion, and I'm willing to bet that the second one would have made more money if the entire DCEU wasn't in the dumps. And even so, Aquaman 2 was the highest grossing movie of the last half a dozen films that they put out in the universe.
That's not saying much.
I know it's not saying much, but it is saying something. It's saying something in the sense that James Wan James Wan has done a lot of good work in the horror genre for Warner Brothers, and regardless of whether you are a fan of those horror movies that James Wan worked on or not,
I think James Wan is a good horror director. I do think so. I can't see him.
A name like James Wan could easily fit the description where he isn't the most A-list name, but he can work with the smaller budget because he's done it before. He's somebody that the studio would trust because not only would James Gunn trust him because of the resume he has with DC, but also the brass at Warner Brothers Discovery. So not Warner Brothers Pictures or New Line Cinema, where he's worked before, the other studios on the lot, but Warner Brothers Discovery has a relationship with this guy. And so I think he would come in, and he has done studio pictures before. They can trust him to do this well. And if he has a vision that he pitches, this is the other thing. James Wan could be the perfect fit, but if he doesn't want to direct it, then it doesn't matter. Like if
I could see David Bruckner doing it, because he recently just did the newest Hellraiser movie, so he's open to doing bigger budgeted like IPs. So I could definitely see him doing it as well, and I think he would be a good name that's like kind of growing into some sort of relevance. So I think whoever they I just hope he's good. I just hope they're good. Like Lee Wannell, I don't know. Well, I would hold out judgment until the Wolfman movie comes out, because if that movie sucks, I say no.
I mean, Manus saying, what if it's Gunn who directs this movie like Snyder and Rock said? So there was a rumor on one of the other YouTube shows talking about this, that potentially James Gunn could jump on this and have this be like a smaller movie that he does after doing something as big as Superman. And it would be something that, it goes into production later this year. But I know that James Gunn wants to take a break, but if this movie is coming out in late 2026, then I don't know if that gives James Gunn enough time to kind of take the break that he really says that he wants to.
I think
because despite the fact that it's a smaller movie, he still needs to go into all the prep work for it months before they start shooting. So I don't know. It's a good theory, but probably not likely. But what do you think about the idea that the Watcher has, like the version of the character we want?
I could see Matt Hagen being, because it's like Basil Karlo. To be fair with Basil Karlo, they did give him like a proper new backstory with DC Rebirth, and it was a good one. I mean, they tied it into the whole movie thing, gave him his own thing, but I could see it being Matt Hagen because it's just kind of easier, because he was the original Clay. It depends what they want to do. Like, if they want to keep Basil Karlo and just have him be like a Phantom of the Opera-esque character, I could see that happening. That could be interesting. It would be very different, and I don't think a lot of people would be intrigued with that, but I think that could be interesting. Or they want to do Matt Hagen and just do that, because it's definitely like brings in a lot of interesting vibes, because he's like a treasure hunter. He's like kind of like an Indiana Jones type character, and he goes into like the Amazon. He finds this like pit, and he falls in, and he like becomes like one with this clay thing, and he becomes clay monster. So just as long as we don't get Madam Web flashbacks, we should be okay. But I think that could be good. I mean, they could go with a whole bunch of different clay characters, but I can imagine them either doing Basil Karlo or Matt Hagen, because those are the most popular ones, the latter of which because of the animated series, but I could see them going with either.
Yeah. I mean, whichever version of the character they go with, obviously this is going to be one of several clay faces in the DCU, because we've already seen a version of the character in Creature Commandos. And while you're at it, guys, if you are watching and you haven't already, like Fiona says in the comments, hit the like button. We do appreciate it. It gets the video out in front of more people, and we can grow the community that we have, an already fantastic community of everybody in the chat. We've got Angelica, you got Retro Edits, and Antonio the Watcher joined, of course, a little bit late to the party, but Caleb's here. Fiona saying no, not Madam Web.
Caleb's been here the whole time. Don't talk about Caleb like that.
No. I'm saying like everybody in the chat, TC24. I'm just shouting out everybody who's already hit the like button.
Gore Verbinski could be good.
Caleb was. I think he was half jokingly saying it, but I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him directing a movie for DC. Yeah, I don't know what he's been up to of late. But hey, what you see on screen here, talking about like lanterns. We were talking about the John Stewart lantern earlier, but we've already got a DC. Look, the contrast between the DCEU and the DCU couldn't be more greatly, put on notice and display here than the fact that in the DCEU they announced a Green Lantern Corps movie, like all the way back in like 2014, I think, at Comic-Con, but they did the whole slate of films. And we never got the movie. We never got a Green Lantern Corps movie. They decided to turn it into a TV show that completely got retcon. Like they even cast the characters, and then they completely started from scratch. But here we are in the new DCU, and all of a sudden, less than a year into it, we have not one, not two, but three Green Lanterns. I mean, the Lantern Corps is one of the most iconic parts of the DC comic book lore. Like, if you are a DC Comics fan, you know who the Lanterns are. You know how big a role they play in the larger cinematic universe, and you know the presence they have in the comics. And not to mention the many different iterations of the Lanterns. And we already have three of them, and they're all the three of the most iconic iterations. Not like Kilowog or having some random alien one that, granted, people like and the comic book fans recognize. But in the DCEU, we never quite got any of the more recognizable Lantern names, and that's kind of sad because the Ryan Reynolds Lantern movie was supposed to kind of kick off a cinematic universe, and then it was pretty much a big flop. And then they started again with Man of Steel, but then we never got to a Lanterns project. We got a Justice League that somehow featured Cyborg, but no Green Lantern. So I'm just happy to see that there's three of them here. Lizz, are you a fan of the Lantern characters? And do you think it's overkill to kick off the universe with three of these characters already existing? Or do you think it's the perfect take on this whole,
Dan, you know I know nothing.
Yeah.
No, but again, because of that, because I know nothing, I am excited for any new character that I am introduced to. So no, the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. And again, if you're saying that they're a big part of the DC universe and the DC comics, and it sounds like they just show up whenever they feel like, because that's what I would do if I was a Lantern. I would just be like, hey, what do you need? I'm all for it. The more the merrier. Let me learn these things. Like, I just found out today that there was more than one Clayface. Who knew? Not me. So I'm totally fine with it. Bring them on. That's what I say.
Yeah, I mean,
there's how many Earth Green Lanterns? Is it 6?
Put on the Jeopardy music while John thinks.
6. It's 6. 6 main continuity Earth Green Lanterns.
Okay.
6.
Mm-hmm.
Hal Jordan, John Stewart, Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner, Simon Baz, and Jessica Cruz. Those are all.
Ooh, there's a lady in there. All right.
Yes. I'm not alone. Thank you, Manos. Insert the vindication clip from Brooklyn Nine-Nine with Captain Holt.
I remember. I know exactly what you're talking about. God damn.
Vindication.
Yes. Yep. Oh my God! Rest in peace, Underbrar. Oh my God! I can't believe he's gone. I cannot believe he's gone.
I know.
Oh my God!
He would have been a great Martian Manhunter.
He would have been a perfect Martian Manhunter, even when he was like, "Yes, Queen," like with the whole, "You're not pulling that card on me."
Pulling the gay card right now.
Yeah.
Queen.
Yes, Queen. Perfect. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is honestly one of the best sitcoms of the 21st
We just
century.
have an episode talking about Brooklyn. It's like my comfort show.
We should totally do this.
I never watched the last.
The best.
It was a good show. Like,
dude, the best cold open.
The NBC seasons were a little shaky, but I overall it was still a good show.
So wonderful,
dude. It was perfect. Do you guys remember? I will say the earlier seasons were better. There was my favorite cold open is the one where they're like practicing like throwing. I think it's like donut holes, like munchkins, and like the people's mouth, like all the like, all right, catch it in your mouth, and so they'd keep doing it, and then one of them flies out the window, and Sully's walking in outside, and he looks up, and then it just lands in his mouth, and he's like, ah! I'm like, oh my God! I was like, it was I laughed so hard, I rewound that thing 5 times before I watched the rest of the episode.
Honestly, I don't know if like
he's like, it's happening.
There's a lot of great cold opens from a lot of great shows, but I don't think
Well,
any cold open will beat the Office fire drill from
fire
Dwight.
drill. Oh my God, guys, it's happening!
God,
Everybody
that is
stay
so
calm.
good.
Everybody
Dan,
stay the fuck calm.
But just for a little background
Right,
for you,
yeah.
Dan, I don't think you know this. So Scully was featured in a cheese commercial in the early 2000s, late 90s.
Oh, really?
So that was kind of a callback.
It was
to
a
his
callback?
cheese
Oh,
commercial
God.
because he caught a piece of cheese. And
Okay.
yeah, I'll have to
Okay.
find it and send it to you.
You
But
know
yeah,
what? It's so good even without knowing the reference. I love it so much. That show
But
is
it's
so amazing.
But it's even better knowing the reference. Like
Yeah.
I remember
also
that
love
commercial the moment
how-
that happened. I was so
I
happy.
also love how young Scully is Jack Reacher.
I
That's
know,
pretty-
right? Oh my God. Perfect casting. Oh,
Even
man.
though that kind of fucks up some continuity, but
it does, but it's okay. We roll with it. It's so perfect. It's so perfect.
Tom King
9-9,
should
yeah, love
play David Zaslav in a biopic since it's
Oh
evil
no.
playing
Okay.
evil.
Tom
It
King is
works.
just catching strays here, but we're talking about
Good.
the
Fuck Tom King. Jay Kelly isn't here.
Yeah, Jay Kelly will defend
Love you,
Tom
Jay
King.
Kelly, but
Um,
sorry, nothing you will say will make me like Tom King.
But hey, guys, in general, we're already looking at the slate of this new DCU. You can tell that DC is going to have a pretty big year in 2025. It's January 1st today, and we have already been talking about it's going to be the year of Superman. Peacemaker Season 2 comes out later this year. Creature Commandos is airing its penultimate episode later tonight, and then the finale next week. So it's going to be spread out. They're not putting out 9 projects like Marvel is, and Marvel isn't doing that because they wanted to. It's because a bunch of stuff got delayed, so everything kind of got piled onto the one year, and they're going to pull back next year. So I'm not taking a pot shot at Marvel here, but for DC to be having, this spread out schedule where they have an animated show on Max now, then you get a theatrical release movie in Superman, and then you get Peacemaker Season 2, which will probably then try to tie up some of the loose threads from the previous 2 outings in the DCU this year, and then build towards something going forward. It feels like it's going to be a good year because all of these projects have James Gunn closely attached to them. He wrote all 3 of them. He directed, a good chunk of Peacemaker Season 2. He directed Superman. He was very closely attached to Creature Commandos, even though he didn't direct the episodes. He wasn't a showrunner, but he was definitely heavily involved. So I know that early in the MCU's timeline, Kevin Feige had a very close, hand, or what do you want to say? He had his hand in all the pies. He was running around back and forth just wild trying to figure out like all these movies, and they were only making like 2 movies a year at that time and no TV shows. But Kevin Feige was very closely involved in everything, and that led to, I think, for a lot of people, like an MCU that felt more coherent, where the quality control was there, and in general you didn't get anything that was a miss. Most everything was a hit. So now with DC, I feel like having James Gunn have such a big role in these early projects, you're getting, hopefully, with Creature Commandos, clearly the early results are good, but hopefully moving forward with the next 2 projects, we're gonna not only set the tone, but for the DCU, but hopefully he's gonna set the bar so high that moving forward, when James Gunn is not so much involved as much in every project, maybe he's a producer but not so much directing or writing everything. Everything else after that can then follow in the success of what we see in 2025. What are your thoughts? And again, James Gunn being so closely attached to everything this early on. I'll start with you, John. What do you think? Yes. Are you still there? Are you still here?
Because I stopped I stopped hearing you guys, and I think I was out. Am I out? Am I okay?
You are okay.
We see you. We hear you.
We just had the awkward pause, so now you can definitely give your.
No, I sorry. I think I went out for a little bit. Can you say your thing again?
We could see you the whole time. But basically what I'm saying is James Gunn is so closely attached to everything this early. Like, he is directing, several episodes of Peacemaker. He's directing Superman, and he's also, written every episode of Creature Commandos. It's similar. I'm not saying Kevin Feige wrote all the early movies in the MCU, but Kevin Feige was very closely involved in every project, and that led to a higher floor and a higher ceiling for everything. So the MCU was, basically revving out hits after hits, to the point that, by the time the first Avengers movie was done at the box office, the MCU was already a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Do you feel like with James Gunn being so closely involved with every project this early on, he's trying to emulate that model by really kind of stamping his vision on this universe early on, so he kind of sets the tone for the DCU moving forward?
I don't think so. I don't think he's trying to redo Marvel. I mean, he has said multiple times he's not trying to redo that formula because that works for them. So he's trying to do his own thing. If you're talking about like general his vision, like just the vision of Kevin Feige and then the vision of James Gunn, yeah, I agree with that. But if you're like, oh, the vision of Marvel, but on DC, I don't think he's doing that at all. So I don't think that at all. I think James Gunn is just kind of just doing his own. He's just like, I'm gonna do my own thing. This is DC. This is different. I'm doing my own thing. He's gonna have his own thing, and that's fine. But I don't think he's trying to emulate I mean, he has said many times he's not trying to emulate Marvel. He's not trying to emulate Kevin Feige. He even mentioned like way back when he's like, I don't want Kevin Feige's job. Even now, like being in a co-CEO role, fuck that. I don't want that kind of job. I'm not that guy.
Right.
So this is a different job for me. So that's what I'm gonna do. But he's just doing his own thing, doing his own vision. That aspect of like just purely a vision standpoint, yes. But if we're talking about Marvel on the DC formula, no, that just wouldn't work. So I think they're just kind of doing their own separate things, and I'm excited for one of them. I've been scorned too much from the other side, unfortunately, even though I'm wearing red, ironically. But I just, I'm excited for this whole thing, and I think James Gunn's. I mean, there's pros and cons to it all. I mean, we've talked about how James Gunn refuses to just be quiet for 2 seconds, but but there's also like, and there's the pros and cons of him only greenlighting projects once they come in, because like there is the idea of like Deadpool, Jesus, I'm really off my rocker today. Batman Part 2, it was greenlit before he was the co-CEO, him and Peter Safran. So it's like, this is a leftover thing from like a green lighting a project before we got the script. So it's kind of in that limbo state. I think that's why it's also kind of awkward for James Gunn to talk about, because he's like, it's kind of like how he did not do anything in regards to Joker Folia do in terms of that. I think I went out because I stopped hearing people after a while. Okay. I don't know what the fuck that was about, but I just, everyone was just like, I was like, wait a minute, what the fuck is it? Anyway, stop interrupting me. Shit. Now I forgot what I was talking about. Fuck, you guys suck. You're mean.
Well, I don't think that he's trying to emulate Marvel, but I think he saw that was a formula that was working. And again, he's talked time and time again about how canon, keeping things canon and following canon is extremely important to him for certain stories. And when, especially when it makes sense, and that's, the best possible thing that you could do for a project. So I think in that regard, he's taking that from Feige, and he's like, yeah, that works. And that's what DC's been missing for quite some time, is having somebody overseeing the projects, having somebody doing quality control, having somebody just like double checking and be like, well, wait, does that make sense with all the other projects we have coming up? So I think he's smart in that regard. But again, giving a little too much away, a little too early, having to backtrack, not a good look. So maybe stop talking. Like, again, just keep posting pictures of your dog. That's fine. But I can see where in that regard he doesn't want to do the Marvel stuff, but he's also recognized that it has paid off for them in droves. So in that regard, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole idea that you want to have a lot of quality control and you want to put your stamp of approval on everything early on, so that you kind of set the tone. Like I said, setting the tone is different from saying that this is my vision and my vision only. Like TC24 was saying, the directors he's working with are a very different set of directors than who, worked on the first few MCU movies. It's, Kenneth Branagh directed the first Thor movie. I'm forgetting the name of the director who did the first Avenger, but like obviously Jon Favreau did the first 2 Iron Man movies, and then Joss Whedon did the first Avengers movies. So when you look at the directors that are attached to so far the DCU, they're very different. But at the same time, I mean, the characters are very different. The stories they're telling are very different. So it makes sense. And then the question that Angelica was asking earlier, do you think Superman will make $1 billion? Look, so far, based on the trailer's performance versus the company that is keeping with all the other movies that had such big trailer launches, every other movie on that list, the Spider-Man No Way Home, the Avengers Infinity War, Avengers in Endgame, Deadpool, Wolverine, all of them made more than $1 billion. A couple of them made $2 billion. So if that is anything to go by, Superman certainly has a shot at making $1 billion. Is he going to do it? I think, this needs to really be the year of Superman, the summer of Superman that they were talking about when they said, they're going to make this marketing campaign similar to what they did with Barbie and really, push it so hard that nobody misses this movie. if they're able to accomplish that, and if they're able to continue to build a positive momentum behind Superman and avoid the kind of slippages that we have gone with, like, the whole Batman 2 got delayed, the Brave and the Bold, might not be coming out for a while. Like, we need less of that, and we need more of the Superman trailer. Like, we need more of the positive ones.
I mean,
then you
Super
can
Bowl's
hopefully
coming in a
get $1
month,
billion.
right? So we're gonna be definitely getting another.
Yes,
I don't think we're gonna be.
exactly.
I don't know if we're getting a full trailer in February because it's just 2 months.
It's too close to it, maybe. Yeah.
So we might get like a tweaked version that's like kind of similar, maybe with like a little bit more footage, but we're definitely getting a TV spot because and then we're getting like a good like long TV spot too.
I mean, and you know what,
you got to take advantage of that.
Exactly. And then what Elite Easy is saying, a good point that Sean Gunn mentioned recently, something to the effect of James Gunn really loves the world building aspect of all of this. That in his current job he's starting to build a new universe from scratch. He's not taking someone else's work and building on it, like what he had to do with the Suicide Squad or what he was doing at Marvel, where he was sort of he had his own little playground, but it was a part of a much bigger universe. Here, he kind of gets to call the shots from scratch, and like you guys are saying in the chat, he's compared this to Star Wars more so than the MCU in terms of like different time periods, different places, different planets, different characters, and he's just sort of saying, we're open to all possibilities, and we're going to embrace the mythology all the way through and through. We're not going to hide away from like having crypto and having crypto with a cape,
actual comic book elements.
Exactly. Like we're not going to shy away from that, and I do think that he loves that. And the Watcher saying Gunn said the formula he's going for is more akin to Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, which you know what? It feels perfect for DC because DC's characters feel more like gods among men than they'd feel like with Marvel. Their characters are meant to feel much more like they're humans with powers, but they're meant to be more relatable, more down to earth. Not saying every character.
Batman is just sitting in the corner like they haven't figured out I'm not a god yet.
Let's keep it that way. But then again, you do have like Thor, and you have all kinds of cosmic characters in Marvel, so it does go both ways. But nonetheless, the general perception is such that DC's, especially like the main Justice League characters, are much more like gods among men, where perfect, these beings of made out of stone.
More fantastical. I don't think exactly. I don't think the gods among men argument holds up because it's like there's a lot of human elements with these characters, a lot of flawed things with these characters. It's just I think their power sets are like. I don't want to even say they're more the focus. It's just like they're more recognizable in terms of the power sets. While like thinking of this, like Superman is the all powerful guy, even though that's not the best aspect about that character. Meanwhile, the most like recognizable aspect about Spider-Man is with great power comes great responsibility. A quote about the human condition. So it's like. There is. I'm not saying it's wrong that it's like the gods among men thing, but it's just like I feel like there is that human element. It's just you got to really read and dig deep to find that because like on the I think like surface level, it's like the gods among men and the human things, but there's more underneath the surface that exactly. I feel like a lot of people kind of don't see or let things go as
exactly. And I think that's what hopefully like the Watcher pointing out all this. Different characters. Hopefully we get to see more of that in the new DCU because Zack Snyder really leaned into that whole gods among men approach, and that in the eyes of the general audience, that distinction became more and more so that the idea that hey, you watch Marvel, you're watching like human beings who just happen to have powers and have similar problems to what we do. They live in the real cities like New York City, whereas in on the DC side, Metropolis, Gotham, like they're and these characters are practically like just all powerful and immutable and Wonder Woman like she's been around for hundreds of years. Like I hope that we still get some aspects of that, like Superman is still very, very powerful, but the fact that he can bleed and it's not something where it's like, do you bleed? You will, like you're not dishing it out as like some epic fight that's going to happen between two gods. It feels more like, oh, Superman got beat up by somebody and he needs his dog to like help him out, like any one of us would, like take me home, although most of our pet dogs would not probably be able to drag us all the way across the ice to the Fortress of Solitude.
I don't know about you.
But then again, I'm just looking forward to seeing how this early phase of the DCU takes shape, given how much of a say, how much of a footprint James Gunn has on it. So let's see where it goes. But I mean, hey, that is probably going to do it for us today. If you haven't already, like Antonio was saying earlier, hit that like button. And then, of course, if you are new, you can hit the subscribe button because we are live 5 days a week. And you can see us on, of course, DCU Daily. We sometimes do movie reviews. With those who are curious, we talk about Marvel. We have a segment called MCU Weekly. Last week, we had a really lively debate about the Doomsday situation and RDJ, Chris Evans coming back. And is that a betrayal to the fans who, sat through all of Endgame and got the payoff? But, and we'll be talking more MCU this week. There's potentially a new Fantastic Four trailer dropping soon. If it does, we'll break it down. There's a new Captain America trailer that came out. So, and of course, we got Crucial Commandos dropping now in a little over 3 hours from now if you're watching us live. So hit that notification bell. That way you know when we are live, and we'll be back tomorrow and the day after with more DCU Daily. And if you joined us late, then of course be kind and rewind so that you can see the rest of the show. We were here for like a good 2 hours plus. So we're gonna go rest our voice boxes. And then we'll be back tomorrow reviewing Creature Commandos. And then on Friday, we're going to go a little bit deeper into the DCU slate because, of course, there is more to get into all the other projects that are on the list, including the ones that don't have release dates. But we will speculate as to where those might land on the calendar. So until then, guys, go out there, watch something DC related, check out Creature Commandos, come back to us and talk to us about it because you'll be here to talk to you about it tomorrow. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, John. And to you, a good night or a good day or good afternoon.
Good night and good luck.
Year.